Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of what if Deku was born with 2 streaks in his hair? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Quirks and soulmates go hand in hand. Anyone born with a quirk is guaranteed a soulmate and vice versa. At birth, people are born with a single streak of hair the color of their soulmate's hair. So, when little Izuku was born with 2 streaks in his hair, the right one white and the left one red, Inko was simultaneously surprised and concerned. 2 soulmates was not unheard of. In fact, oftentimes one was platonic and the other romantic. However, in those cases, one streak was duller than the other, more of a tint. The 2 streaks Izuku presented were bright and thick, indicating romantic partners. Inko knew how hard it was for a person to find their soulmate, let alone 2. She didn't want her baby boy to end up settling for someone other than his soulmates, as she did, indicated by her hidden streak of blonde hair. Her husband, Izuku's dad, had black hair. She wondered about her boy's soulmates. Would they be boys or girls, or one boy and one girl? What quirks would they have? What quirk would Izuku have? Would they complement each other? No matter the outcome, Inko would support her son no matter what. It was 5 short years later when Inko took Izuku to the doctor. Quirks normally manifested between the ages of 4 and 5, and Izuku was turning 6 in less than 2 months. There was an off chance that he was just a late bloomer and would get his quirk a few years or so, but he should at least have showed a sign of a quirk. She was worried about her son with good reason. The doctor finished scribbling notes down as Inko anxiously bit her bottom lip. Izuku was in the chair next to her, gripping his all-might action figure. The doctor looked up and stared at Inko with a pitying face, then said, "I'm afraid young Izuku is quirkless." The room became deathly quiet as Inko drew in a large breath, trying to hold in the tears. It was interrupted by the sound of Izuku dropping his figurine. A long pause passed before Inko finally spoke. "But that's impossible. He has a soulmate." The doctor sighed. While there have been no cases reported in this country, other countries have reported rare happenings of quirkless citizens born with soulmates. By these reports, the chances of this happening is approximately 1 in 4 billion. Inko glared with teary eyes. The doctor continued, "By his x-rays, Izuku has an extra joint in his toe. Anyone with a quirk is missing this joint. He's more than likely just a rare case, Mrs. Midoriya. But Izuku wants to be a hero." The doctor closed the file and crossed his legs. "What exactly is your quirk and his father's quirk?" Inko looked away and put her hand on her chin. "I can draw small objects towards me," she demonstrated by bringing Izuku's figurine to her hand and giving it back to him, "and his father can breathe fire. With all due respect, even if he had inherited one of your quirks, the chances of him becoming a hero would be slim. It'd be best if he thought of different career goals for the future." With that, Inko thanked the doctor, grabbed Izuku, and left. She made a mental note to search for a different doctor, one who wasn't as old and blunt about shattering a 5-year-old's dreams. The trip home was quiet, with Izuku staring off in space and Inko on the brink of tears. She hoped no one would ask what was wrong for fear of her breaking down then and there. At home, Inko made Izuku katsudon and put on his favorite videos of All Might. He ate dinner in silence and kept rewatching the same video into the late hours of the night. Inko was worried that her son wouldn't be able to sleep, so she checked on him. "Izuku!" He turned around in the swivel chair, his hand clutching his All Might figurine with tears streaming down his face. "Mama, will I ever become a hero now?" At that, Inko burst into tears and hugged her tightly. She blamed herself for this. Was it because she had a child with a man who was not her soulmate? Was it because she had a weak gene? Was it because the man she thought she loved with all her heart had abandoned them, and caused something inside Izuku to repress his quirk gene? Okay, maybe that one was a stretch, but it still crossed her mind. "I'm so sorry, Izuku." Inko sobbed. "I'm so sorry." She continued apologizing and crying along her son until the 2 of them fell asleep. She woke up in the middle of the night and carried the boy to her bed, where the 2 curled up and fell asleep. Midoriya kept his quirklessness a secret for as long as he could. It wasn't long before he was 7 and all of his classmates were presenting their quirks while he had nothing to show. Kaken had gotten his quirk rather late, but it was an amazing one in Midoriya's eyes. He had an explosion quirk, with the potential to become very strong. Along with his quirk came a patch of firetruck red hair where his hair was parted. A crowd of students had gathered around him as he demonstrated his newfound quirk. "Wow, Kaken! Your quirk's so cool!" Midoriya exclaimed. "Of course it is." Bakugo replied. "I'm gonna become a strong hero with it." "What's your quirk?" one of the girls watching asked Midoriya. Midoriya blushed and averted his eyes. He didn't want to say anything, but now he was cornered and had no option but to tell the truth. "I actually don't have one." At that, Bakugo grinned triumphantly. "You hear that, everyone? Stupid Deku is quirkless. How lame. And he wants to be a hero at that." Everyone laughed. "A hero?" Someone explained. "How's he gonna do that if he's quirkless?" "Who knows? I feel sorry for his soulmates. Deku has 2 that both have to live with a lame but quirkless soulmate. Hell, the 3 of them might all be quirkless and can live their boring lives together." Midoriya looked down and clenched his fists so tight they turned a ghostly pale shade. "My soulmates won't be like that." His voice cracked as tears began running down his face. "Now the big quirkless baby is crying. How are you gonna become a hero like that?" Bakugo taunted while the other kids laughed all around him. "I will." Midoriya cried out indignantly. "Just you watch. I'll become a hero." "Fat chance." Bakugo shoved Midoriya down. "You see? If you can't beat me, you'll never become a hero." He kicked Midoriya in the kneecap just hard enough to leave a bruise, then left with the herd of classmates following. Midoriya wiped his tears, then sat up and inspected his. "Ow, ow, ow." He cried as he gently prodded the now forming bruise. As much as he wanted to cry, he didn't. Kaken was right, he can't become a hero if he cries. Besides, he had to be tough for his mom. He may not be a hero just yet, but he was a hero in her eyes. And heroes don't cry. He also couldn't tell his mom about where he got the bruise. He'll just tell her he fell down again. After all, that's where all the other bruises came from. Midoriya was 10 years old when he finally came home crying to his mother. The boy had a swollen face and bleeding scrapes all over his knees and arms. Inko scooped him in her arms and soothingly rubbed his back until he finally calmed down and told her what happened. He said he was pushed down in the park and made fun of because of having 2 soulmates and no quirk. Izuka never mentioned any names, but Inko wasn't stupid. She knew that Katsuki Kid was bullying her son. Anytime she brought it up to his mother, she was always shot down with a, "But he's never like that at home," or, "But he's such a sweet kid." It frustrated her to no end, but there was nothing she could do if Katsuki's mother was that oblivious. After calming down a little, Izuku asked, "Mama? Can we dye my hair? I know my soulmates wouldn't mind." Inko bit her lip before reluctantly agreeing. As much as she wanted to encourage her son to embrace his soulmates and his quirklessness, she knew that it was gaining such negative reactions from the other kids. So, she dressed Izuku's wounds, gave him an ice pack for his face, grabbed her purse, and the pair headed to the store to pick out some hair dye. The next day at school, Izuku made up the story that he really never had any soulmates. He just dyed his hair because he wanted to pretend he had 2. "I knew it," Bakugo said. "I knew Deku was just pretending." The bullying never stopped, it just diminished drastically. From then on, Midoriya dyed his hair every other week, not wanting to take a chance that his red and white roots would show. Midoriya met his hero, All Might, at the age of 14. He had a nasty run-in with a slime villain that tried taking over his body. It was honestly the scariest moment of his life, and he probably would have died if All Might hadn't arrived and fought it off. He couldn't believe it. His hero, the man he admired more than anyone, was right in front of him. He asked for an autograph and received a large thick signature in English from All Might. The hero was about to leave, but Midoriya had so many questions. He impulsively latched onto All Might's leg right before he jumped. All Might didn't notice the boy until he let out a muffled scream against his leg. All Might looked down and was surprised to see the boy with a death grip on his calf. I've had some pretty crazy run-ins with fans, but this one takes the cake, All Might said. Why don't you let go so I can get on with hero business? If I let go I'll die. Midoriya exclaimed. Please, if you'll just hear me out? I have so many questions I need to ask you. All Might sighed, then landed on the nearest building roof, peeling off a messy-haired, chapped-lipped Midoriya. What do you want to ask? And make it quick, I have another villain I need to tend to. Midoriya looked down, still in disbelief about being in the presence of All Might. Could I become a hero without a quirk? All my life I've been told by adults and my peers that I could never become a hero, because I was born without a quirk. It's strange actually because I was born without a quirk, yet I still have a soulmate. Two actually. It may not look like I do, but that's just because I dye my hair. It's pretty weird for someone without a quirk having two soulmates, Midoriya nervously chuckled, scratching the back of his neck and turned around. Isn't I? Who are you and what have you done with All Might, you imposter? Before him wasn't the All Might Midoriya knew and adored. Instead, it was a scrawny man with duller golden hair, sunken cheekbones, and lifeless eyes. The man in front of him looked a few days away from death, not the man glowing with life that All Might is. It's me, I can assure you. The not-so All Might's mouth began spurting blood down his chin. I don't believe you. Midoriya replied with a shocked expression. This was most certainly not his hero. It must have been an imposter, or maybe even All Might left and this guy had replaced him, or this is my real self, the one I don't show to the public. All Might sat down and pulled up his white shirt to reveal a nasty scar. You're my fan, so I'm sure you remember what happened 5 years back. I no longer have a stomach and my respiratory system is slowly deteriorating. My face is a side effect, by the way. Ever since that accident, I can only stay in my public form for a max of around 2 to 3 hours a day, give or take. What you see here is my true form. And since only a select few people know about this, it must be kept a secret. This pain I have to live with is typical of a hero. All of us have to live with some form of pain, be it emotional or physical. Because of this, I'll have to answer you with a no, you can't become a hero without a quirk. Midoriya averted his eyes and held back tears. I should have known. I'm sorry that I've bothered you, it's just that I've always wanted to prove everyone wrong and, he trailed off, not knowing what else to say. If you've had your eyes set on being a hero for so long, then maybe you could consider work in the police force. After all, they do help heroes in detaining villains. I'll consider it, Midoriya replied, still on the verge of tears. No, heroes don't cry. It was like a punch in the face for his childhood hero, the man he's always looked up to, telling him that he'll never become a hero. But, well, it's always a wonderful thing to have dreams, but you shouldn't spend too much time dwelling on the impossible ones. See ya, kid. All Might began walking down the stairs, leaving Midoriya to his thoughts. Midoriya wanted to cry and run to his mother, something he hadn't done in 4 years, and it was only one time, thank you very much. She would comfort him, make him Katsudan, and encourage him to still chase his dreams. Sighing, Midoriya left the roof as well, clutching his burned hero notebook and awkwardly saying hello to the janitor on the first floor as he left the building. He began walking towards home, still dwelling on All Might's words. He should have known that his favorite hero would discourage him from becoming a hero. He was nearly in high school and still had yet to come to terms with this. It still hurt, especially because becoming a hero wasn't simply a childish dream as All Might thought of it. It was serious, and something he would do anything and everything to make it a reality. Midoriya wiped his tears. He noticed a huge crowd gathering on his left. He made his way over out of habit, listening in on conversations as well. Why aren't the heroes doing anything? One man asked the woman beside him. Apparently, the villain has some middle school kid hostage inside of it. That poor kid. I hope it doesn't traumatize him or anything. Could it be? Midoriya stood on his tiptoes to get a view over the crowd. The villain was indeed the one who nearly took over Midoriya's own body, if All Might hadn't arrived. But All Might had caught the monster, unless, when Midoriya latched onto his leg, the bottle fell out and the villain escaped. Midoriya wallowed in guilt, nearly throwing up when he realized the boy trapped had to go through the same pain as he did. The crowd began exclaiming positive thoughts about All Might coming and saving them and the boy, while Midoriya was consumed of his own negative thoughts of how this was his fault. The villain turned, with the boy who was caught making eye contact with Midoriya. While he had certainly never seen him with tears in his eyes, Midoriya instantly recognized who it was. He sprinted through the crowd, ignoring all of the heroes' cries for him to stop. He threw his backpack at the villain and clawed at the goo, trying to save Kaken. Through his tears, Midoriya said to Kaken, "You looked like you needed someone to save you." "Move, you annoying kid," the villain yelled at Midoriya. He reached to smack the boy out of the way, but was stopped by All Might. The hero used one of his signature moves to detain the villain and save Bakugo. The crowd praised him with great thanks for saving them and the boys. After the villain goo was picked up from the streets, Midoriya was scolded for impulsively deciding to save Bakugo, despite his lack of a quirk. Meanwhile, many praised Bakugo for his demonstration of a strong quirk and his bravery under the circumstances, even though he was honestly scared shitless and almost cried, which he certainly did not do. After it was all said and done, Midoriya and Bakugo were sent home after being double-checked for any injuries. As he walked towards his home, Kaken called out, "Fang Deku. I never asked for you to save me. I've never asked for anyone to save me, I might owe you one now, but don't ever think I'll apologize, got it?" He walked off on his separate way, leaving Midoriya to his thoughts. Now he could happily and gladly give up on his childish dreams of becoming a hero. After all, he'd seen firsthand that he couldn't do anything without a hero to intervene, and becoming one would only become a hassle on everyone else because they'd always have to save him, and "I made it!" All Might yelled. He was in his public form, sprinting towards Midoriya. "All Might?" Midoriya exclaimed. "What are you doing here? I thought you were surrounded by reporters and couldn't get away." "Believe or not, I can get away when I need to. Because I am all me." He coughed up blood and changed into his smaller form and took a deep breath. "Listen, kid. I think I owe you an apology and a thank you. I couldn't bring myself to save that boy from the villain, and thanks to you, I finally found the resolve. And no, it was actually my fault this entire thing happened. If I hadn't grabbed your leg, if I hadn't disturbed you with childish dreams, the villain would have never escaped and Kaken would have never gotten trapped. Besides, I had too much confidence that I could become a hero even though I'm quirkless," Midoriya rambled. "Yeah, about that. Not one of the heroes at the scene could even do anything. And you, a quirkless boy, saved him with no hesitation. It's the traits like that that make a person a true hero. Even I myself have forgotten about that. So, thank you." Hearing All Might's words set off Midoriya's tears. For some reason, his mind went back to when he was 5 years old, the day he was told he was quirkless. His mother cried out to him with apologies. He knew that she completely blamed herself for his lack of a quirk, but it didn't make it hurt any less. All Midoriya wanted to hear that day was words of encouragement. "It's all right, Izuku. You can still be a hero. I'll help you live your dream." His mother still supported his dream, but her regretful words from that day still play in his mind. "I'm to tell you that you can become a hero, and I will help you." Midoriya burst into tears. Just earlier today, his hero told him there was no chance of him living his dream. Now, he was telling him he could become a hero, and even All Might himself would help him. "I have deemed you worthy to be able to inherit my power." "Wait, what?" Midoriya asked incredulously. He had collapsed to the ground on his hands and knees. Looking up at his hero, his eyes were filled with tears, his nose dripping snot onto his chin. "My power? My quirk? In that current form, you wouldn't be able to handle it, which is why I will help you, kid." All Might spewed blood. "Honestly, you must have noticed, in my interviews, I've never given any hints as to what my quirk is. The media just makes it up on their own, saying it's a body enhancement quirk, or something along those lines. I was given this quirk by my predecessor. Since it formed many years ago, this quirk has been passed down from master to student. And now, the time has come for me to pass it along to you." "But, you mean to tell me your quirk can be passed along to whoever you choose?" "That's right. Wait. I don't think I understand. Or maybe I do understand, it's just that I can't quite wrap my head around it. There's never been a quirk that's been inherited. I mean, of course quirks are inherited, they're generally passed down through DNA and such. But like a quirk that is passed along by choice? Like you can actually choose who gets it, and they don't have to be related to you. Midoriya rambled. Hey, now, you're giving me a headache with all that muttering. But, yes, this power can be transferred from person to person, given the name, One for All. All. Midoriya repeated. Yes. One person is given a large amount of power to, in a sense, fight for all. Hence, One for All. But why are you giving me this power? I mean, I'm thankful and all, but I'm just some quirkless kid. And that's precisely why, kid. I've been looking for a successor for years now, and none of them that I've considered have ever shown the heart and bravery that you have within mere minutes. You, a mere quirkless kid, outshined even the pros who were present. And that's why I don't mind giving you this power. He paused, then smiled sheepishly. Of course, it is your choice. You don't have to receive the power if you don't want to, and I can look for another successor. I'll do it, Midoriya announced with no hesitation. And thus started the journey of younger Midoriya Izuku on his path to become a hero. The training was harsh and painful at times, but Midoriya persisted. All Might had told him that one couldn't just receive the All for One, they had to prepare their body for it. And in Midoriya's current state, there was a lot of preparation that needed to be done. Midoriya's current task of training was cleaning the beach filled with garbage. He didn't really mind, the beach was unvisitable, and doing this was not only training him, but also giving back to the community. Along with training, he had to follow strict diet plans that his mother gladly cooked for him. After all, she wanted to support her son in any way, shape, or form. It was nearly 4 months after training began. Midoriya had noticed intense changes to his body. It was much more muscular, and his previously loose uniform had to be altered by his mother to fit his growing form. While he was incredibly exhausted from balancing training and schoolwork, along with preparation for Yui's exams, Midoriya did notice he had more energy building up and could gradually do more in a day. All Might and Midoriya were taking a lunch break. Their meal breaks were often silent, with only small talk about school in between bites. This time around, Midoriya gained the confidence to ask a question that he had been mulling over for years. Do you have a soulmate, All Might? All Might choked on his onigiri, coughing up little bits of rice and blood. Well, of course I do. All heroes have soulmates. The quirks and soulmates are a package deal. I know that, which is why I've always thought it was weird that I had a soulmate, but never a quirk. But, is your hair streak hidden? My mom's is hidden, it's on the underside of her hair. Actually, my boy, the streak is this entire strand. All Might pointed to his left hair strand. Almost every hero dyes their hair before their debut, unless they've already met their soulmate. It's easier that way. If the hero becomes popular, oftentimes people will dye their hair to match. You don't even want to know how many people with the wrong hair color have come up to me with a dyed streak in their hair, claiming to be my soulmate. So, it's not strange that I dye my hair? Not in the slightest. Okay, Midoriya hummed. So what color is your streak? I actually have 2 soulmates. One on this side is white and the one on the other side is red. Well, I have, unfortunately forgotten the color. It's been so long since I've seen it as I debuted quite a while ago. There was an awkward pause. So, what did you think about the hero Sonika's debut? What did you think of her quirk? All Might change the subject, knowing Midoriya would be eager to talk about heroes. It worked, and Midoriya talked for a full 20 minutes about the advantages and disadvantages of the echolocation wave enhancement quirk, all while dragging a refrigerator All Might was sitting on. Finally, the day of Yui's entrance exams arrived. At precisely 6 o'clock in the morning, All Might arrived at the beach, only to find it clearer than it's ever been, and Midoriya on top of a pile of trash. The boy collapsed from exhaustion into All Might's arms, and he had to admit he was much more than impressed with the young boy in front of him. I did it, Midoriya stated weakly. That you did, my boy. Now, you've busted your butt for these 10 long months, so now it's time for the prize, One for All. He plucked a piece of hair from his head and handed it to Midoriya. Now eat this. Huh. Midoriya looked at All Might like he grew a hand from his forehead. Now, all you have to do to receive this power is ingest some form of my DNA. This isn't exactly how I would have wanted it, but hair is the fastest and most painless, so just eat it. Midoriya swallowed his pride and reluctantly swallowed the blonde hair whole. Midoriya arrived at the gates of Yui just 2.5 short hours later. Due to the rush of getting ready for his entrance exams, he never got the chance to test if One for All had successfully transferred. Guess he'll find out later. Out of the way, Deku, Kaken commanded. Oh Kaken. Good luck on your exams today. Midoriya stuttered in reply. Save it. We both know I'll be getting in and you won't. Don't even know why you effing showed up. Bakugo sauntered on ahead. Midoriya let out a breath, then took a step forward. He tripped over his own 2 feet and plummeted towards the ground in what felt like slow motion. He felt someone grab him, then all of a sudden he stopped falling. The person who grabbed him righted him to standing position. It was a cute girl a few centimeters shorter than Midoriya, whose warm brown hair cut into a bob. She had a green streak of hair just a few shades darker than his on her bangs above her right eye. Her eyes were big and her cheeks were adorably rosy. She pressed her hands together and the feeling of weightlessness left Midoriya. Are you okay? She asked, with a voice as clear and beautiful as a bell. Sorry for using my quirk on you. I didn't really want to see you fall. Good luck today. I hope you're not as nervous as me. She giggled then ran ahead, leaving Midoriya in a daze. To talk to a girl other than his mom for the first time in his life. And a cute one at that. He wondered if one of his soulmates were as pretty as that girl was. If this was how high school was like, he couldn't wait to start. He took his seat in the auditorium and waited for the introduction of the exams to start. Welcome everybody. A loud voice exclaimed in English, then switching to Japanese. Hey, examinees. I'll be telling you exactly what's gonna happen today, so listen up, okay? Midoriya was visibly shaking in his seat. Right in front of him was Present Mike, one of his favorite pros. It's Present Mike, he fanboyed audibly. I can't believe it, I listen to his radio show every week. I can't believe the teachers at Yui are all pros. Shut it Deku, Bakugo said. He had the unfortunate luck of being assigned to sit right next to his least favorite person. After this sweet presentation, everyone will be separated into groups and will challenge a training city district for 10 minutes. During this time, several enemies of 3 different strengths will appear. Each is given a different point value. The goal is to rack up the most points. And attacking the other examinees is completely against the rules, so don't even think about it. A few collective groans reverberated. One guy a few rows behind Midoriya and Bakugo stood up and announced, "Excuse me, I have a question." On the handout passed out to us, it clearly stated that there will be 4 enemies, not 3. He shifted his line of vision to Midoriya. And you with the curly hair. And me. Midoriya squeaked. Your muttering and fidgeting is incredibly distracting. If you think this is a joke, I suggest you leave. Several students laughed around him while Midoriya just blushed and turned around. He was used to people thinking his rambling was crazy, but being called out in front of a room of strangers was completely embarrassing. Excellent question, examinee 7111. Present Mike said after the laughing had died down. The 4th type of enemy is worth 0 points. I'm afraid that these are too strong for everyone and are to be avoided at all costs. I see. Thank you very much. The boy bowed deeply, then sat down. If there are no more questions, then without further ado, head to your assigned area and let's get this exam on the road. Plus Ultra. The exam area Midoriya was assigned to was huge. It was like its own city in itself. And to think, there were several other areas, all probably exactly the same. He knew that the Yui campus was huge, but this was just ridiculous. All of the other examinees seemed confident in their abilities. Of course, Midoriya thought, all of them have grown up with their quirk. They know exactly what it is and how to control it. No one else had just received their quirk the day of the exam. He looked around, desperate for a familiar face. Maybe someone he went to elementary school with or lived nearby and went to a different school. The boy who called him out during the presentation was there. While that certainly was a familiar face, it wasn't someone he would willingly go to. Midoriya's eyes finally came across the girl from earlier this morning. He started walking towards her, desperate to at least shake off some of his nerves and possibly thank her for this morning. "Hey," a familiar voice called. Someone grabbed his shoulder, holding him back. "You weren't thinking of bothering someone before the exam, were you?" Midoriya jumped as he looked at the boy from earlier. "No, of course not." Other students loomed nearby. "Huh," one said, "look at him. All shaking and everything. Guess there's one less person to worry about." Everyone else within the group began commenting about how they knew there was a chance of at least one person they'll defeat. "Start!" Present Mick's voice boomed. Everyone froze. "What? There's no countdown in real life." Immediately everyone sprinted, leaving Midoriya in the dust. Throughout the exam, Midoriya had the worst of luck. He wasn't the fastest, so all of the enemies, robots actually, at the beginning were all destroyed. He kept searching for some place, an area that no one had visited, where there were some left. Time was ticking. There were less than 5 minutes left, and he had not destroyed a single enemy. He came across an area with an abundance of enemies. Only problem was, so had everyone else. He watched as everyone defeated enemy after enemy, racking up points. Soon, the ground began to rumble. A towering robot, taller than any of the buildings, appeared and headed towards the examinees. Many dropped what they were doing, sprinting out of the way, while Midoriya stayed frozen. He needed points, but there was a huge robot. He started running, but stopped when he heard a groan of pain. Turning around, he noticed the girl from earlier, trapped under rubble from the robot making its entrance. Midoriya didn't think. He began sprinting back towards the robot. Adrenaline was pumping in his veins and he felt power within his legs as he jumped in the air, meeting the robot head-on. He reared his right arm back, feeling the same power move to his arm and swung, landing a hit on the robot. The robot was done for, and Midoriya would be as well, if he didn't figure out a safe way of landing. The impact of the punch had broken his entire arm, and he was pretty sure his legs were broken as well. His body began plummeting, with him saying his final goodbyes in his head to his mother and All Might. He was prepared to break his fall with another punch, until his thoughts were interrupted by someone slapping him. He felt lightless, and gently floated to the ground until gravity seemed to take a hold again, and he fell about half a meter to the ground. Beside him, several pieces of debris fell along with him, including the piece the girl was on. He looked over at her, only to watch as she threw up the contents of her breakfast. The exam was now over. Midoriya Izuku ended with exactly 0 points. Now, there was no way of him ever getting into Yui. A week later, and Midoriya was anxiously waiting for his results. He knew for sure that he has passed the written part, but getting a 0 on the heroic part? Fat chance of him being accepted. He spaced out all week, worrying his mother tremendously. All he ever did was train, eat, and sleep in no particular order. In fact, he'd hardly touched his meal, then excused himself to his room. "Izuku, honey, even if you didn't make it," Inko trailed off as her son held back tears that were beginning to form. Seeing her son almost crying made her start to cry a bit. "It's still an incredible thing to say that you participated in Yui's exam." Izuku left the table, leaving a worried Inko behind. She finished her dinner, and put away what Izuku didn't eat in a container, placing it in the refrigerator. She checked the mail and was incredibly surprised to find a letter from Yui among the monthly bills. She dropped everything and ran as fast as her legs could carry her to her son's room. "Izuku, the letter from Yui has arrived." She was nearly in tears by the time Izuku opened up the door. He reluctantly grabbed it and headed back to his room. Inko shut the door, wanting to give her son privacy, and paced back and forth. Midoriya wasn't expecting much. Perhaps a short letter beginning with, "We regret to inform you." A projection featuring All Might was the last thing he expected. "Is this thing on?" The message began. "It is?" "Well, young Midoriya, it appears the two of us will be seeing more of each other, since I'll be working at Yui. First of all, I apologize for not speaking to you after the exam. I can't show favorites after all. All Might cleared his throat. You did fine on your written exam, as you probably could guess. However, on the physical aspect you received a 0 and failed. Midoriya looked away, knowing what would happen next. However, All Might continued, take a look at this screen. He turned it on, only to show a video of the girl he saved. Excuse me, she began. The boy with the curly hair and freckles, you know. He saved me, so I was wanting to know if I could share my points with him? His face was filled with conviction. All Might paused the video. As you can see, you may have ended up with 0 points, young Midoriya. But, your actions of a true hero have touched others. He pressed play. Present mic ruffled the girl's hair. There's no way for you to share points. However, I don't think it's necessary, even if you could. Kid, the Department of Heroics isn't just looking for young heroes who can defeat enemies. There's more to a hero than just that. All of the judges have agreed, you have earned points for rescuing young Uraraka Ochako. And with that being said, you have earned 60 points. Congratulations, my boy. You have been accepted to UE. With that, the projection died down, while Midoriya broke down crying. He had made it. He was now taking the first step to live out his dream and to find his soulmates while he was at it. Todoroki Shudo was born with 3 different hair colors. The right side was a bright white, and the left side a dull fiery red. Where the 2 colors met was the third color. Starting from the top of his head to his face was a small tuft of bright green hair. Todoroki Miyuki was glad to know he was guaranteed a quirk and a soulmate. She knew he would need one, especially to provide emotional support his father wouldn't ever give him if the lack thereof he gave to his other 3 children was any indicator. Her other children were considered failures in the eyes of her husband. Not a single one of them inherited both her quirk and his. Hell, the oldest was quirkless. The doctor said it was the result of the 2 quirks canceling each other. Her other son had a much weaker fire quirk, while her daughter had a mix of the 2 quirks, but they were incredibly weak and could often not be separated, creating water or steam most of the time. To her, her children were beautiful gifts, even if they did share the same DNA as him. She cherished every single one of them and wanted only the best that she could give them. Hello, little Shudo, she cooed to the bundle within her arms. I'm glad I can finally see you. She slid the right side of his face gently, slightly gasping when he opened his eyes to reveal heterochromatic eyes. Maybe you'll finally be the child he's been wanting, she said wistfully. But I know what that means for your future. So for your sake, Shudo, I hope that you don't get both of our quirks. Maybe you'll just get Mama's. She kissed his head and lulled him back to sleep. Of course, Miyuki didn't receive her wish. On the eve of Shudo's 4th birthday, he came down with a terrible fever. It shifted between deathly cold and impossible hot for hours on end. Her poor boy whimpered in his sleep. The only thing she could do was cool him down with her quirk and comfort him by gently stroking his hair. She stayed with him all night, until he woke up at 4 in the morning, his right side covered with a thin layer of ice and his left side smoking. Shudo sat up and yawned. He rubbed both of his eyes, not noticing the changes from his newly presented quirk. Mama, what are you doing in my room so early? Miyuki bit her lip, then grabbed Shudo into a bear hug. Happy birthday, Shudo. My boy is 4 now, I can't believe it. She let go, trailing her hands down his arms to feel the temperature difference. It seems like just yesterday you said your first word. Mama! Shudo exclaimed. In his slight embarrassment, his left side began puffing small flames. He stared incredulously at his arm covered with fire, but it didn't hurt. Mom, my arm's on fire. What do I do? Miyuki giggled as her son waved his arm around trying to put out the flames. Shudo, that's your quirk, sweetie. Her son stopped moving his arms and looked at her with such big and excited eyes. Really? I have my quirk now? This is such a good birthday present. He threw both of his arms in the air, but his right was much heavier than his left and took a bit more strength to keep it up. Curiously, Shudo glanced at his arm and saw it covered in a few centimeter thick sheet of ice. I have 2 quirks? He asked as he brought both of his arms down. Miyuki smiled sadly at her son. No, your quirk is just very special. You inherited both of Mama and Father's quirks. So I can control ice like you? And fire like Father? Miyuki nodded, pressing her index finger to her lips. We have to keep this a secret. Why? Shudo curiously asked. Because if your father hears about this, then he'll take you off to train. But, Mama, don't I have to train if I want to be a hero? She ruffled her son's hair. Of course, sweetie. But even All Might didn't start training until he was much older than you. You want to be like All Might, don't you? He nodded furiously. Then you need to not tell your father about your quirk, okay? Okay. There was a pause. Mama, how do I turn my quirk off? Miyuki laughed at her son's choice of words. Close your eyes. She commanded. Shudo obliged, then opened one eye a few seconds later. And keep them closed, Shudo. She waited for him to shut both eyes. Now, imagine your right side is getting warmer and your left side is getting colder. She watched incredulously as her son's displayed quirks disappeared. Not only did her son inherit both her and his father's quirks, he also has incredible control over them. Miyuki knew her son would be a strong hero someday. Mama, I did it! Shudo exclaimed, interrupting his mother's thoughts. Miyuki smiled brightly at her son. That you did! Now remember, anytime you feel like you're going to lose control over your quirk, just remember, right is hot, left is cold. Right is hot, left is cold, he repeated. But how will I know if I'm gonna lose control over my quirk? It'll be a gut feeling, Miyuki replied, tickling Shudo's stomach. He giggled in response. Now, get some sleep, Shudo, and Mama will give you your birthday presents when you wake up. But, Mama, why can't I have them now? He asked, then yawned. Miyuki just smiled, then stood up from the floor. She kissed Shudo's forehead, right on the green of his soulmate streak. Go to sleep, Shudo. She tiptoed out of his room, looking back at his sleeping form before gently shutting the door. Miyuki turned to her left to head to her bedroom when she was stopped by an annoyed Endeavor. He sauntered over to her in his hero uniform, obviously about to go on a mission early in the morning. Let me see the boy, he demanded. He just fell asleep. Leave him alone, and head out on your mission, Miyuki replied back. Snidely. He's my son. You have 2 other sons that you can wake up if you want to see your children so bad before you leave. Or did you forget about them, seeing as you only care about Shudo now? Miyuki knew it was coming, but there was no way of preventing it. Endeavor reared his hand back, coating it with flames, and smacked her right across the face. It stung and she blinked back tears, not wanting to show her husband that he had won. He had hit her before in the past, but this was the first time he ever used his quirk along with the hit. Now that you know your place, woman, you'll let me see my... A loud beeping noise coming from Endeavor's transmitter interrupted him. Endeavor, we need you now. There's been a... He turned it off. You're lucky today. But talk to me like that again, and you won't get off as easy. Endeavor left, leaving Miyuki with a burning cheek to tend to. Luckily, she possessed an ice quirk and was able to keep the swelling down to a minimum. Oh, if only Shudo hadn't inherited both quirks. Shudo successfully kept his quirk hidden for almost a year. Just like his mother said, it really was a gut feeling when his quirk would get out of control. After several chants of right is hot, left is cold, it was easy for him to keep his newly found quirk from getting out of control. It wasn't until the beginning of December when his father found out about his quirk. That day, it had snowed a record amount, so Shudo and all of his siblings wanted to make snowmen, and snow women, and snow angels. Over the past few years, Fuyumi had gained more control over her quirk, so she could freeze any snowmen women made to preserve them. The 3 older siblings knew something wasn't right when Shudo tried to go outside without a coat. Rei, the oldest, and Fuyumi had to wear one, and even Kajiro, with his fire quirk, still had to wear one because he was unable to regulate his body temperature. Shuto, Fuyumi called before he could leave the house. Don't you need a coat? Oh yeah, he replied, slightly panicking. He forgot that cold and hot temperatures don't bother him, but he was supposed to be hiding his quirk. I forgot. He grabbed the smallest one on the coat rack, a heavy blue one a size too big, put it on, and then Kajiro helped him put on his hat and mittens. After the 4 children made a total of 7 snow people, Shudo quickly made a snowball barely big enough to fit in his hands. He threw it at Kajiro, who let out an indignant, "Hey!" before making his own and throwing it. It missed Shudo and hit Rei, who was standing right next to the youngest. Rei then grabbed as much snow that he could fit in his hands and tackled Kajiro, shoving the snow down his shirt. Fuyumi tried breaking the 2 of them up, but then both boys threw a pile of snow at her. "Oh, that's it!" she exclaimed, rolled her sleeves up, and made a snowball. Before throwing it, she slightly froze it so it would pack a harder punch than normal. She chased her other brothers who were running because they knew better than to anger Fuyumi, throwing it when she got close enough to them. Shudo giggled when it hit Rei in the back of the head. "No fair!" Rei yelled. Shudo wanted to join on the fun, and began making more tiny snowballs to throw. He almost wondered if he could freeze them like Fuyumi, but accidentally made it a solid ball of ice. Shudo took a glance at his siblings to see if they were watching. Fortunately for him, they were engrossed in their snowball fight. He transferred the ball of ice to his left hand, trying to melt it just a little bit. He accidentally caught his hand on fire, melting the snowball to water. Unluckily for Shudo, his father just so happened to be walking by when he noticed his youngest son standing by himself, snowball in hand. He watched curiously as Shudo concentrated hard and turned the snowball into a ball of ice with his right hand. Then, he looked at his siblings before switching it to his left, and his hand caught on fire. Endeavor smiled triumphantly, then began walking over towards his children. He grabbed Shudo by the arm and dragged him inside. "Let me go!" Shudo cried out. He always had neutral feelings towards his father. In fact, he never quite felt like he was related to the man, if not for the left side of his face saying otherwise. But his mom did always warn him that if his father found out about his quirk, he would take him away and train him. Shudo knew from the way his mom spoke about training, it wasn't something to be happy about. In fact, as Endeavor began dragging him against his will, he was more terrified than anything. Shudo watched as his siblings stopped playing and looked back to him being pulled away. Fuyumi began running towards him, but was held back by Rei and Kajiro. They whispered something in her ears, and then she stopped struggling and looked at her younger brother with sad eyes. His father continued dragging him until they reached a room he's never been in before. He was thrown onto the wooden floor, landing hard on his elbow. Shudo sat up and cradled his right elbow, tears in his eyes. He stared at the punching bag in the corner, refusing to make eye contact with Endeavor. "When did you get your quirk?" his father asked. "Today," Shudo lied. Endeavor grabbed his son's chin and turned it, making eye contact with him. "Don't lie to me, boy. I wasn't born yesterday. You have too good of control over it to have gotten it today. Now tell me, when did you get your quirk?" Shudo was terrified. He had never interacted with his father much, save for a few public ceremonies where he had to pretend the 6 of them were the ideal hero family, which was far from the truth. In all honesty, Shudo really hasn't spoken to his father more than 10 words at a time. "I'm not telling you," Shudo said confidently. His father shoved his face to the right and let go. Shudo fell onto his face because of the force. "Fine," Endeavor said after a few seconds. "It doesn't matter when you got your quirk. But from now on, you'll be training with me." Shudo had never been more scared in his life. Training had started easy enough. Just a few basic lessons a week to help Shudo control his quirk. They lasted until Shudo was 5 and deemed worthy to be able to learn how to fight. Endeavor paid 3 different instructors to teach his son fighting skills every day, each with a different style. Those lessons lasted only around 4 months after Shudo learned the basics of every style. Then, Endeavor personally taught him. They sparred every day, with each match becoming more and more challenging for Shudo. He never won a single match, as every time he either passed out or threw up or broke something. He had to keep the training a secret from his mother, or else. Even though he never directly told his mother, she just knew about the personal training Endeavor was doing for his youngest. Every night, she patched up his wounds and taught him how to control his ice side to produce an ice pack for his bruises and scrapes. He was very thankful, and it was all because of her that he was able to deal with the training. One day, Shudo was tired of being used as his father's punching bag. He made a bag of some clothes, shoes, and a few coloring books and crayons and left the house early in the morning while it was still dark. He was off to find his soulmate, since he knew they wouldn't want him to suffer. He began walking down the street until he no longer recognized the part of town he was in. The sun began to rise and eventually he found a park. Shudo sat on one of the benches and pulled out his all-might coloring book his mom bought for his past birthday, a secret from his father, of course. He prided himself in being a very good colorer and carefully began coloring All Might's hair with a bright yellow. He finished the first 3 pages in his coloring book, and by that time, kids began showing up at the park. A few of them asked him to play games with them, and he accepted their offer. Since he began training, he wasn't allowed to play with his older siblings anymore. His father told him they were below him, since they didn't have as superior of quirks. Shudo didn't believe that. They were his older siblings, after all. After playing a few games and stopping for lunch with the other children, Shudo had started to get worn out. He found a tree with some nice shade under it and made a makeshift bed using his backpack as a pillow and a jacket he brought as a blanket. He closed his eyes for a few minutes, and then fell into a deep sleep. He woke up a few hours later to the sound of yelling. He opened his eyes, still groggy from his nap, to find a boy with spiky blonde hair with a bright red patch holding an All Might figurine and towering over a boy with messy green hair who was on the ground. They both looked to be around his age. "Give it back, Kaken. My mama bought that for my birthday yesterday," the smaller green hair boy said. He tried getting up, but then was pushed back to the ground by the blonde boy. "No way, Dad. You don't deserve it. It's mine now," the blonde kid named Kaken replied. "Katsuki," a mother called from the benches by the playground. "It's time to go home now." The blonde kid threw the figurine into the bushes by Shudo. The green-haired kid turned to go get it, revealing 2 streaks in his hair, a red one and white one. "My soulmate," Shudo thought. The green hair certainly matched the small little bit in the middle of his color split. The boy took a few steps towards the bushes before a woman with similar green hair came and grabbed him. "Izuku, come on honey. We're gonna be late for dinner." "But, Mama," he argued. She still kept tugging him along. "I'll make katsudon tonight," she countered. With those words, the green-haired boy completely forgot about the figurine and began pulling his own mother away. He must really like katsudon. Shudo went to the bushes and found the All Might figurine at the bottom of the prickly foliage. He placed it in his bag, vowing to give it to his soulmate the next time he meets him. If he ever meets him again. His stomach grumbled very loudly. That's right. All he had to eat today was a few onigiri the other kids gave him when they ate lunch. The sun was beginning to set. His options were to spend the night in the park or try to find his way home. He ended up making his way home. He had successfully taken a day off from training, and it was the most fun he's had since that one day in December with his siblings. It was nice while it lasted, but he had no food and missed his mother's cooking and hugs. He began walking on what he hoped was the right road home. It wasn't, and it was dark, and Shudo had no idea where he was. He just kept aimlessly walking down a road, hoping to find something he recognized. He then heard a familiar voice call out his name. "Shudo!" "Mama?" he called back, voice cracking from the tears beginning to fall. He began running in the direction he heard the voice, answering his mother when she called for him. He saw her form under the street light and sprinted until he was in her arms. "Mama," he said, hugging her tightly around her neck as she brought him into his arms. "Shudo!" She was crying, and Shudo hated seeing him mama cry. "Oh, my baby boy. I was so worried." He let go of his mother's neck and began to wipe her tears. "Mama," he started as he began to cry himself. "Don't cry." He grabbed her again, bawling into her neck. "I'm sorry, Mama. I didn't mean to make you cry." "It's okay, Shudo. All that matters is you're okay. Now," she sat him down and held his hand, "let's get you home." "Okay," he agreed, following her. "Oh, Mama, guess what? I met my soulmate today." Miyuki looked at her son in disbelief, then cracked a smile. "You did?" "Well, I didn't meet him, exactly. But I saw him. He had messy green hair, just like my streak. Oh, and he had 2 streaks, one white and red, just like my hair. I hope I can meet him again." Shudo exclaimed. I'm sure you will, Miyuki replied. She couldn't help but worry. She knew that since Shudo had such a powerful quirk, Endeavor would want him in a quirk marriage to further strengthen its power. All Miyuki wanted for her youngest was for him to be happy, especially with his soulmate. He was getting bullied by someone though, Shudo continued. Some kid took his All Might figurine, then threw it in the bushes. I was so angry. I wanted to save him, but before I could, both of their mamas took them away. Just the fact that you wanted to save your soulmate means you'll be a great hero, Shudo, his mother replied. Really? Of course. But you already are Mama's little hero. She poked his nose, causing him to giggle. It took the two another 5 minutes before they reached home. The entire time, Shudo talked about his soulmate and how he wanted to get strong and become a hero for him. He also talked about how he bet his soulmate would have a powerful quirk, just so he could show that bully who's boss. Miyuki could only smile the entire time at her son's speculations. When they arrived, Endeavor was waiting at the door. He was in his hero costume, when his arms crossed impatiently. So, you finally decided to show up after skipping, boy. Shudo looked down, not wanting to make eye contact with his father. Meet me in the training room, Shudo, and I'll show you exactly what happens when you disobey me. No, Miyuki said. No. Endeavor repeated. He's only a child. Why can't you let him have a childhood like the rest of my children? Miyuki stood in front of Shudo, ready to protect him if need be. Don't you get in the way, woman. The boy ran away, and he'll receive his punishment. Maybe he ran away because of the way you treat him, Miyuki muttered under her breath. Endeavor glared at her, but then went inside the house. Miyuki followed him in and went to go reheat the leftovers from dinner to give to Shudo. He scarfed them down hungrily, even demanding seconds. After he finished his second bowl, Endeavor came to collect him. Miyuki wanted to step in, but she knew that if she did, her husband would hit her in front of Shudo. She didn't want her son to see her get hit. So, she wordlessly let his father take him into the training room. Training was the worst Shudo had endured yet. His father punched harder, kicked harder, and even used his quirk against him. Shudo couldn't keep up, only making weak ice walls to protect himself, which were shattered easily by Endeavor. His father punched him hard in the stomach, causing all of his dinner to come up all over the floor. Get up, Endeavor commanded. If you can't take this, then you'll be defeated by every enemy you come across. Now, get up. Shudo could only reply by throwing up more of his dinner. If you hadn't run away, you ungrateful boy, I wouldn't be having to do this. I am doing you a favor by training you. He was about to throw another punch at his son, when Miyuki ran in and protected Shudo. Endeavor stopped a meter before it hit her. Out of my way, woman. He's only 5. Miyuki shouted at him with tears running down her face. Please stop. Only 5, you say? Don't you mean he's already 5? Endeavor countered. The earlier he begins his training, the better he'll be, Miyuki. Of course, you wouldn't understand, as you're not a hero. She glared at him. Being a hero has nothing to do with this, Endeavor, she snarled his name. After all, you did marry me, despite not being a hero. Filled with rage, Endeavor smacked his wife across the face. She fell, leaving Shudo vulnerable. Mama! He called, checking on her, and then glaring at his father. Training is over, Shudo, Endeavor said, exiting the room and slamming the door behind him. Mama? Shudo asked, concerned for his mother. She held the cheek that Endeavor smacked. It was swollen, pink, with blisters starting to form from her husband's quirk. Shudo removed her hand, then replaced it with his right one and cooled it down to form a layer of ice on it. Miyuki smiled at her son. You're already so strong, Shudo. My little hero, already taking care of me and saving me. She sat up. Mama will be fine, sweetie. All thanks to you. She ruffled his hair, then scooped him into her arms and left the room. The hitting only got worse from there. Miyuki gained more and more confidence about stepping into her son's training sessions when they got too much for her liking. She was fine with sacrificing herself, because every time she did, Endeavor ended the training there. She was pleased with that, But then her husband began hitting her in private. Anytime he had a bad day at work, it always had something to do with All Might, he would take out his frustrations on her. He learned to start hitting in more coverable places, like her stomach and back. Pretty soon, Miyuki had a collection of bruises that rivaled her son's. It wasn't like she didn't try to file a divorce in secret and take the kids with her. She went to a lawyer's office, who reviewed the contents of their Quirk marriage contract. Of course, the BSTRD mentioned something in the contract that a divorce could only be successfully filed and legal if both parties agreed to it. There were almost zero loopholes in it, leaving Miyuki to be stuck with her husband. Looking back, she's not sure why exactly she agreed to the marriage. Her parents were a huge factor, pushing her to at least give the number 2 hero a chance after her soulmate died several years before. And he completely swept her off her feet. A few months later, they were married with a child on the way. After her firstborn, Rei, was born and later deemed quirkless, Endeavor changed. He was no longer the sweet and caring Enji that she knew and fell in love with. Perhaps he had been pretending the entire time, only using her to produce an offspring that would inherit both of their quirks. Every time one of their children received their quirks, and they were always early bloomers, he sweet-talked her into making another one until Shudo was finally born. It was driving her mad, all the abuse. Each and every day, she hated the man more and more. She hated him for all the pain he caused her, both physical and mental. She hated him for the pain he caused her son. She hated him for ignoring his other children in favor of abusing Shudo. Every single day, it seemed like the children were becoming more and more like him. The same facial expressions, the same tone of voice, the same attitudes. After she tucked Shudo in for the night and healed his wounds, she went to make herself some tea and call up her mom. As the water was warming up, she dialed up her mother, appreciating the calming, "Hello," she answered with. I'm not sure I can handle much more," Miyuki said, tears burning her eyes. "Miyuki, what's wrong?" "Mom, I can't handle it anymore. That man, did you know he hits me? Every single day. And it's not just me either. He hits Shudo too," she bit her lip. "I've tried finding loopholes in our marriage contract. I've tried to leave him, Mom. But there's none and I'm stuck here. I swear, every day the kids look more and more like him. I hate it. Mom, what do I do?" "And Mama?" Miyuki heard a voice. She turned and it was her Shudo with his left side in view. He looked so much like Endeavor, and she just snapped with hatred for the man. She dropped the phone, ignoring the cries of "Miyuki" from her mother. She grabbed the now boiling pot of water and walked over to her son. No, this wasn't her son. It was her DMNBSTRD of a husband. She grabbed his right shoulder and poured the hot water over his left side. "So unsightly," she muttered. Shudo began screaming and crying at the same time. The training sessions with his father were awful. But this, even the worst of days, was no match for the pain he experienced. It felt like his skin was melting off. He just wanted it to stop. He drifted into unconsciousness a few seconds later. Miyuki then dropped the pot and held her son, realizing what she did. "Shudo? Shudo!" She shook him, crying into his chest and applying a cold hand to the burn. "Mama's sorry, Shudo, now wake up." She was ripped away from her son by Endeavor, and she threw a punch at him, hitting him square in the jaw. He grabbed her wrist, squeezing it with so much pressure it felt like it would break. "Now you've done it, woman. This is all your fault." She screamed at him. Her husband grabbed her chin and forced her to look at her unconscious son. "No, this is your fault. You did this, Miyuki. You poured water on Shudo. And now, you'll be checked into the mental hospital for it. Say goodbye to your son, because you won't be seeing him for a while." "No. No!" she cried out. Miyuki grabbed Shudo one last time, but was dragged away by Endeavor. He made 2 phone calls, one to the hospital to pick up Shudo and the other to the mental ward, where he would personally be checking her in. Shudo was checked out of the hospital a week later, with his skin permanently damaged. The doctor said it would leave a scar for the rest of his life, but luckily, there was no damage to his eyes. It was a miracle, they said. Endeavor picked up his son after he was discharged. He had only visits a total of 3 times, just to make sure that the damage done wouldn't hinder Shudo's development in future years. The ride home was silent, with Shudo staring out the window the entire time. After they arrived home, Shudo sat on the couch. The house was empty, and the one person he wanted to see was missing. "Where's Mom?" he asked his father. "Oh, her? She's the one who did that to you, so I put her in a hospital. And it was such an important time too." Endeavor trailed off. "It's your fault," Shudo shouted. "It's your fault she did this. Funny, she said the exact same thing to me. It's all thanks to her that we have to delay your training. And it's all thanks to her that your soulmate will think you're ugly. Now we'll have to dye your hair, make sure no one knows that you have one." "He wouldn't do that," Shudo exclaimed. "He?" Endeavor repeated, then smiled menacingly. "Oh, now I definitely will make sure you never meet your soulmate, boy." He grabbed Shudo by the hair, then strapped him in a chair while he dyed the streak in his hair to match the two colors. A bit of the dye got on Shudo's bandages, so Endeavor had to change them and did a sloppy job of it, not even covering the whole burn. Later that night, Shudo's older siblings snuck into his room. Fuyumi wordlessly changed his bandages while Rei and Kajiro set up a few board and card games for the four to play. The siblings stayed up well into the early hours of the morning, with several fights nearly breaking out. Shudo won most of the games, but he was pretty sure that his siblings allowed him to win. They laughed and giggled but made sure to never be too loud and risk Endeavor's wrath. Eventually, Shudo fell asleep while in the middle of Uno, so the other three packed up the games and left to their respective rooms. Todoroki had been taught by a private tutor all his life, since they were flexible around training. So, when his father suddenly started him in middle school at the age of 13, he was incredibly awkward and had no clue how to make friends. The whole purpose of this new private middle school was to get his quirk and abilities known in the hero world. Of course, being Endeavor's son was certainly an advantage, but in order to get into UE easily to become a hero, he'd have to demonstrate his quirk to the teachers in a high-end middle school. During his first day of school, he sat in the back corner. Everyone else had known each other since elementary school, as their parents had spent the money to put them in private school. Growing up with minimal contact with his peers led Todoroki to have an incredible lack of social skills. To most kids it seemed unapproachable, and almost no one talked to him the first day. Or maybe it was just the unattractive scar on his left side. The school was like how his older siblings described school to him, save for the gym class for honing their quirks. Maybe that was why his father chose this school in particular. Ever since the accident with his mom years ago, Todoroki refused to use his father's power. The man called it a rebellious phase, but Todoroki thought of it as his own way of remembering his mom while also giving Endeavor the middle finger. Because of this, he's had years of honing his quirk. Needless to say, he impressed the teachers so much with his abilities that they didn't know what to do with him. He was leagues above the other students as far as quirk control and prowess goes. By the end of his first week, the teachers sent a letter to Endeavor expressing their concerns of their inability to teach a boy so advanced, and also about his social skills. Endeavor ripped the letter up and threw it in the trash, then congratulated his son for his efforts with a slap on the back and an easier training session that night. It was during Todoroki's last year of middle school that he finally managed to befriend someone. It was a relatively tall girl that always kept her hair in wild a ponytail with bangs on her right side. Her soulmate streak, a dark brown that almost blended in with her black hair, was on the underside of her bangs. Her name was Yaoyorozu Momo, a mouthful, in Todoroki's opinion, and her quirk was quite unique, in his humble opinion. She could create any object, as long as she knew the chemical composition of it. Because of it, she was incredibly smart in the sciences, and top of the class in almost every other subject. Todoroki was impressed. She had been in his class since his first day of middle school, but never talked to him until they were assigned a project in the beginning of their third year. The two exchanged numbers during the ordeal and still texted each other outside of school. Yaoyorozu knew of Todoroki's father and had even become a great pillar of support when he needed it. The two both got into UE on letters of recommendation from their homeroom and gym teachers. The pair both had the goal of becoming heroes and finding their soulmates, as many others do. Todoroki even told Yaoyorozu about his run-in with his soulmate many years ago, and how he still had the figurine. All he remembered about his soulmate was green hair. He wasn't even sure of the exact shade anymore, but he vowed to become a hero, find his soulmate, then give back the All Might figurine. Yaoyorozu thought it was sweet and then shared her hopes of her soulmate ending up being a girl. "I've never really liked guys," she confessed. "No offense, Todoroki." None taken. After they graduated, their class was shocked to find out that the two weren't soulmates. As Todoroki's hair gave no indication of a streak, he told them it was dyed. Yaoyorozu had to reveal the streak on the underside of her bangs as evidence that no, the two of them weren't dating and they definitely weren't soulmates. Shudo spent his break before high school started training alone. If he was to become a successful hero and find his soulmate again, he would have to put in a lot of work. "Do you have everything, Izuku? Enough pencils? Tissues? Don't forget your lunch, dear. I packed something special for my little hero." "Mom!" Izuku cried out, embarrassed. He loved his mom, he really did, but sometimes, okay, a lot of the time, she could be a little overbearing. He knew she was incredibly proud of him being accepted into UE, what mother wouldn't, but he was older now. A high schooler, on his journey to become a hero and to find his soulmates. He was practically an adult and didn't need his mom babying him. "I have everything, so you don't have to worry." He gave her a hug, shrinking back a little when she placed a wet kiss on his cheek. She ruffled his messy hair, then watched him fondly as he put on his signature red boots to head out. As he was getting ready to turn the doorknob, Inko called out, "Izuku?" "Yes, Mom?" he asked, turning back around to face her. She had tears in her eyes and he needed to look away before he started crying as well. Inko wiped one stray tear that managed to fall, then said, "No matter what, you'll always be my baby boy, Izuku. Now, go out there and become the best hero ever." He smiled at his mother and exited the house. He stopped after closing the door behind him and closed his eyes, taking a deep breath to calm his nerves. Today, he would take the first step to live out his dream. Today, he would prove to every adult who told him he'd never make it wrong. UE's campus was huge, big enough to fit about 12 of Midoriya's middle schools in it with room to spare. He left early with hopes of having time to find his classroom, but he found himself completely lost as he wandered through the labyrinth of hallways. He could have sworn he walked by that water fountain 6 times now. He somehow ended up at the school entrance with 10 minutes left, so he nervously asked an upperclassman for directions. After receiving them, he thanked his senior, then ran off in hopes of not being late for his first day of school. Boy, that would be embarrassing. The door was huge, about 20 feet from the floor to the ceiling. Midoriya figured it was probably to accommodate the taller-than-average students, those with body-altering quirks. He was incredibly nervous, palms sweating and knees shaking. He hoped that Kaken and that fast glasses guy weren't in the same class as him. And of course, since Midoriya seems to have the worst of luck, both were revealed to him as he opened the door. The classroom was boisterous with several different conversations. However, the one between Kaken and Glasses Guy was the loudest. "I couldn't care if my soulmate was right in front of me. For eyes? I don't need one, and I'll be the #1 hero without them," Kaken declared to the other student. "Oh please. Everyone here has come here to try their best and become the #1 hero. I'm just saying that my brother had told me about some added benefits about finding your soulmate. After all, he found his when he turned around and noticed Midoriya, then strided over, bowing deeply as he reached Midoriya. "I would like to apologize for the way I acted during the entrance exam," he began. "It was uncalled for and I completely misread you. After all, you displayed the purpose of the exam while I could not." He stood up and smiled warmly at Midoriya. "I'm Ida Tenya. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Midoriya Izuku. Ah, now that we've introduced ourselves, you wouldn't mind sharing your soulmate streak, would you? Mine's actually a tinted orange streak on the back of my hair, indicating platonic soulmates." He turned around to let Midoriya see the streak, then turned back around. "I wish that fate would have studied the color wheel a little more, because the blue of my hair mixed with the orange tint turned it a bit of a brownish color. However, you can still obviously tell that it's an orange tint. Sorry, I've said a bit too much about mine, haven't I? What color is yours, Midoriya?" A person with a strong quirk like yours must have a bright streak to match. Is it on the back of your head? Under your hair? Midoriya didn't know how to respond. Under normal circumstances, with no one in his class that he knew, he would have just said it was dyed and leave it at that. But since Kaken was here, he had two options: tell the truth or go along with the lie he created 5 years ago. It was a tough decision to make, but luckily Kaken made it for him. Deku doesn't have a soulmate, can you believe it? He even went through all of elementary school dyeing his hair just to pretend he had not one, but 2 soulmates. What idiot, no one has 2 soulmates. Actually, there have been cases over the last decade of people born with both a platonic and romantic soulmate streak, Ida explained. And while there's never been many cases of 2 romantic soulmates in this country, plenty of others have records of it happening. I believe they call it polyamorous soulmates, and all 3 soulmates are in a sensuous and loving relationship. Whatever. Oh, it's you too, a cheerful feminine voice behind Midoriya exclaimed. Midoriya turned around to meet the girl that he saved during the entrance exam. I never got the chance to thank you, did I? After introductions, including Bakugo, Ida, Midoriya, and Uraraka began chatting about soulmates and hopes for the year. All of their goals for high school were the same: become a hero and find their soulmate, as Midoriya discovered. Their small talk was interrupted by a loud groan behind the trio. They turned around only to discover an overgrown yellow caterpillar. No, it was just a sleeping bag with an obviously sleep-deprived man inside. Another year of overconfident children. Another year of giving the soulmate talk. Please, why can't they just transfer me to the 3rd years? He complained, then unzipped the sleeping bag. He sauntered into the classroom and stood behind the podium at the front of the room. Immediately, everyone stopped their conversations. Get in your seats, class has started, he commanded. I'm your homeroom teacher, Aizawa. I will only answer to sensei, or sir, not Aizawa-sensei, or any other name you could come up with. The man had messy long black hair, with no soulmate streak in sight, the scratchy start of a mustache and beard, and intensely bloodshot eyes. He looked like he needed a small coma in order to catch up on sleep, in Midoriya's humble opinion. But, sir, Ida protested, we don't have assigned seats. I don't really care where you sit. Just pick one, and that'll be your seat for the year. Yes, sir. Midoriya found a spot at the back of the classroom, 2nd column by the window. He sat next to a boy with half white, half red hair. The white color was an incredibly dull white, like it was mixed with cream and light gray, while the red was much brighter, almost unnatural looking. He stared out the window, completely ignoring the rest of the class. Midoriya had never seen a soulmate streak that was half of a person's hair. The real question was, which side was the soulmate's? The red, since it looked so unnatural on him? Or maybe it was the white, which did not complement his pale skin. Midoriya debated which side it was until he was interrupted by the teacher announcing that everyone will be changing into gym clothes. Aizawa handed them out to everyone, then announced, meet at the P.E. grounds. If you're not down there within 10 minutes, you can just head home, because you'll be expelled. Locker rooms are down the hall and to the left, you can't miss them. Your time starts now. Everyone immediately sprinted to the locker rooms. Midoriya was pretty sure that was the fastest he's ever ran in his entire life. He changed quickly, and was one of the first down to the grounds. He followed that boy who sat next to him. He seemed to know where he was going. All 20 of them arrived with 3 minutes to spare. The last person to reach the grounds was an invisible girl. The only thing visible was her clothes and a curly honey blonde strand of hair where her bangs, if she even had bangs, were. I ended up being the last one, she pouted. I got lost again, there's too many hallways. Now that everyone's here, Aizawa began, we can start. Back when all of you were in middle school, I'm sure you weren't allowed to use your quirks at all. Here, it's a different story. Use them in any way you think you can, so it'll help you. Many cheers broke out. We'll be starting with an aptitude test, so to speak, to find out the max capacities of your quirks at the moment. Nothing too difficult, just enough to where we can gauge your limits. At the end of the year, we'll be retesting you to see how much you've grown. Oh, and one last thing. He paused. Your scores will be ranked. The last 5 will be sent home, never to come back. But no pressure. Whispering conversations broke out. Many spoke to each other about their nerves, or complained about the unfairness of the whole ordeal. Midoriya kept his anxious thoughts to himself. He couldn't quite control his quirk yet, and an aptitude test judging its capacities? He was practically guaranteed to be in the last 3. He might as well just leave now and save himself the embarrassment of getting expelled the first day. Enough whining and complaining, Aizawa finally said. I don't know what kind of bubble you've been living in all your life, but this is the real world. Villains aren't going to take it easy on you just because you're a weaker hero. That's why I need to weed you out and make sure all of you can handle the coursework. The class was quiet, with the only sound being the bustling city around the campus. Aizawa paused for a moment before saying, now that you understand, it's time to begin the first of 8 tests. The tests went by with Midoriya either somewhere in the middle or below average. The only test he really excelled at was the throwing trial, where he beat Kaken's record by mere centimeters. It was almost comical seeing how mad Bakugo got when Midoriya demonstrated his quirk. However, it terrified Midoriya to no end watching his childhood bully storm over with the intent of hurting him. He was incredibly thankful to Aizawa, who was revealed as Eraserhead, one of the lesser-known heroes at Yui, for intervening with his quirk. The results were up, and to no surprise, Midoriya was dead last. He sulked, thinking about what he was supposed to say to his mom and All Might. Oh no, how was he supposed to explain to All Might that he wasn't good enough for Yui because of his crappy control of his borrowed quirk? Oh, by the way, Aizawa said, I was lying when I said the last 5 would be expelled. Just a little something to get everyone to try their best. Midoriya let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Now, he could face both his mom and All Might without any worries. School passed quickly. Even though Yui was a school for heroes, it was not exempt from teaching math, Japanese, and English. Midoriya was hoping he could get away from that, as his math skills were not the best. History was replaced with a joint hero studies and strategy class, while science class was used to teach the science behind quirks. Most courses were introductory, with minimal homework for the day. The last PRD of the day was taught by no other than their homeroom teacher, Aizawa. As many of you may or may not know, he started, all first years in high school across the country are required to be taught a course in Soulmates. Ida raised his hand, then began speaking when he was called upon. Sensei, why are we required to take this course if our parents or older siblings could explain everything to us? Not everyone in this class has the luxury of their parents being soulmates, so they don't know as much as this course will teach you, Aizawa answered. Yes, sir, of course. I apologize for this interruption. I should have realized that my situation was not common. You're right that it's not very common. As more and more of the population is born with quirks, it's becoming harder and harder for those with quirks to find their soulmates. Aizawa scratched his chin. Probably the generation with the highest ratio of soulmate marriages to non-soulmate marriages was your grandparents' or great-grandparents' generation. Since then, less and less people have met their soulmates, so less and less have experienced the connection. Thus, this course was created 5 years ago to inform the younger generations. This course will not be sugarcoating anything. It'll go in depth on the pros and cons of connecting with your soulmate, what happens if the connection is severed, etc. Today will be just a quick intro, and then I'll be giving you an assignment. Collective groans echoed in the room. If I so much as hear any more complaining, I'll give you more homework and have it be due tomorrow. That quieted everyone. Now, can anyone tell me why heroes don't publicly show their soulmate streaks? The girl with the wild ponytail in the front row raised her hand. Heroes have a lot of fans, so it can prevent a person from pretending to be their soulmate. While this is true, Aizawa agreed, it certainly isn't the only reason. There are several reasons, actually. One of the biggest reasons is the possibility of a villain using soulmates against heroes. Many villains will often kidnap a hero's soulmate if they are a civilian as ransom. Sometimes, a hero just doesn't want the distraction of a romantic life. They're married to their job of saving people. Almost all pros dye their hair to hide their soulmate streak. Very few let theirs show, and 9 times out of 10 it's because they found their soulmate at a young age or while on the job. Aizawa opened the plan book on the podium. Now, your assignment is to pair up, excited murmurs coursed throughout the class, with partners I have assigned. The class collectively groaned. What did I say about complaining? Now, you are to do research with your partner about a hero-hero pair that shows their soulmate streak. It is to be written in a page or less, and I want to know background info on the hero, what their quirk is, who their soulmate is, and a little bit about them. Also, include when the two met, as well as any differences in their quirks if they met after one or both became heroes. It will be due at the beginning of Homeroom Friday. The list of partners is up here. You must have a hero picked out by tomorrow and sign up for it. Everyone must do someone different, because I don't want to read 7 papers on Thunderman and his soulmate, Silverwind, since they seem to be in the news a lot. Class dismissed. Midoriya gathered up his belongings and headed to the front of the room to check for his partner after everyone else had paired up and dispersed. He secretly hoped he was paired with Uraraka or even Ida. Honestly, he just wanted anyone but Kaken. Midoriya sighed a breath of relief after reading his partner's name. It wasn't his 2 new friends, were they even friends yet? But it most certainly wasn't Kaken. However, he didn't recognize the name on the paper. Todoroki Shudo? Midoriya wondered aloud. Me, a voice behind him answered. Midoriya turned around and his partner was revealed to be the boy with the 2 different hair colors that sat next to him. He was pretty sure he had come in second in the aptitude test, which was really impressive. On the left side of his face, there was a rather nasty scar that looked painful. His eyes were 2 different colors, the left one a bright blue and the right one a steel gray. Oh, Midoriya awkwardly said. I'm Midoriya Izuku. I already have a few ideas of who we could write about, so if you want, we could go to your house and… No, Todoroki interrupted. My house is off limits. Okay, so that was out of the question. Midoriya knew there was no chance of going to his house. His mom would be embarrassingly too overbearing, and probably would cause Todoroki to never want to go to his house ever again. Because of that, they might not get the project done, resulting in an F for both of them. And if both of them get an F, then it might ruin Midoriya's chances of becoming friends with Todoroki, because who would want to be friends with the person who caused you to get an F? They could probably meet somewhere else to discuss things, a coffee shop or a library or something. Surely Yui has a library on cam. Are you okay? Todoroki asked, interrupting Midoriya's thoughts. You're muttering quite a bit. Midoriya scratched the back of his neck, his face heating up with embarrassment. It's a bad habit of mine. I start muttering when I get nervous. There's no need to be nervous around me, Todoroki assured him. Oh, I didn't mean it like I was nervous around you. I'm just a nervous person in general, you know? New school, new people. What's not to be nervous about? Midoriya took a deep breath to calm himself. Anyways, I was thinking that we could go someplace like a library. My house is off limits as well, and I wanted to discuss some potential heroes we can research. Sure, Todoroki agreed. Yui has one on campus, towards the front of the building. We can go there to discuss ideas. Yeah, that'd work. By the way, Todoroki, you seem to know your way around Yui very well, Midoriya speculated as they entered the library. I went past the same DM water fountain 6 times this morning, only to find out I was on the wrong side of the school. The corner of Todoroki's lips turned up, but only for a second before returning to his default emotionless expression. Midoriya swore he has only seen 2 emotions expressed from him: determination and disgust. It was nice seeing a new one. Wait, what? I've been here quite a few times before, Todoroki trailed off. He seemed like he didn't want to talk more on the subject, so Midoriya didn't press. They took a seat at the nearest empty table and Midoriya pulled out his hero notebook. Since Kaken burned the first hero notebook number 13, Midoriya had since then gotten a new one. He transferred all of his notes to this one and tore out the All Might autograph in the old one to tape to his wall. He has added several more entries since then, one of which he had an idea for the project. He turned the page to the hero he chose and showed it to Todoroki. We could write about Spike Shooter. She has both a platonic and a romantic soulmate. Her romantic soulmate is Sonica, who just had her debut about a year ago or so, and her platonic soulmate is an unnamed civilian. I think the pair would be a great choice to research, because then we could compare quirk differences before and after finding their soulmate like Sensei said. Todoroki nodded. I agree. But what is this? He picked up Midoriya's notebook curiously and flipped to the first page. Midoriya snatched it out of his hands before Todoroki could read the first word. It's, my notebook, Midoriya told him, blushing all the way to his ears. I like writing down the stats of new heroes and such. It's a bit childish, I know, but I don't think it's childish, Todoroki interrupted. It's rather genius. Just don't let it fall into villains' hands. Midoriya blinked. Was that a joke? I'll let you decide, Todoroki deadpanned. With no hesitation, Midoriya began to laugh. From just looking at him, Todoroki seemed like an intimidating person. Just by talking to him for a few minutes, Midoriya could tell that wasn't the case. He was rather funny, it just seemed like he had awkward social skills. Just like Midoriya himself. Was it something I said? Todoroki asked, genuinely confused. No, Midoriya answered after calming himself down. Just the way you said it. Oh, Todoroki responded, now on guard. It wasn't a bad thing. I didn't mean it like that. Just, you didn't seem like the type of guy to have a sense of humor. Todoroki hummed and nodded in response. Going back to the project, I think we should have a backup, just in case someone takes ours. Perhaps maybe Voltage? His soulmate is a civilian woman. They met about 2 years after his debut and got married about 4 years back. I think they might even have kids now. Wow, I don't think I actually knew that. I knew he met his soulmate. It's in one of my other notebooks, but I didn't realize they got married. How did you find out? Midoriya flipped to the back of the book, then wrote himself a little reminder to update Voltage's profile. I was at his wedding. Midoriya stared at him like Todoroki had just said he owned a limited edition All Might poster. Really? Wow, Todoroki, I'm so jealous. He smiled brightly at his classmate. Todoroki averted his eyes from the blinding smile, a slight color dusting his pale cheeks. Yeah. So, meet here after classes tomorrow? We can start working on the paper after collecting some information. Sounds good. Midoriya agreed. And, Todoroki, you wouldn't mind if we exchanged numbers? Just in case something happens tomorrow and one of us needs to see cancel. Midoriya wanted to die. It was embarrassing how much he was stuttering. That makes sense. Todoroki grabbed his phone and handed it to Midoriya after pulling up a new contact. Here, give me your phone. They exchanged numbers, but before Todoroki could hand Midoriya's phone back to him, it began buzzing with an incoming call. It's your mom, Todoroki told Midoriya after he read the contact. Oh no, I forgot to tell her I was staying after school. She's gonna kill me. Midoriya collected his phone, then shakingly pressed the answer button. He made sure to hold it away from his ear. Izuku. His mother's voice sounded. Even from 3 feet away from his ear, Midoriya could hear her as clear as a bell. I'm so worried. Where are you? I'm with a classmate, Mom, he spoke into the speaker, still keeping it a safe distance. We're working on a project for school. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. I thought something happened. I waited and waited for you, thinking maybe your train just got delayed, but it's nearing an hour and a half past when you should be home, Izuku. You make your mother worry so much sometimes. I thought for sure some villain attacked, just like last year. I was ready to grab something and leave to fight for my baby. Don't ever scare your mother like that again, Izuku. Make sure to text me next time. I will, Mom, Midoriya replied. He was embarrassed that Todoroki was overhearing his conversation, but his mother didn't know how to use an inside voice when it came to talking on the phone. We're actually in the middle of discussing the project right now, so... Oh, goodness, I had no idea. Why didn't you tell me, Izuku? I'll let you go. The last train leaves in 2 hours, so don't forget to leave before then. And text me when you leave, okay? Love you, Izuku. Bye. She hung up before Midoriya could reply. Todoroki coughed awkwardly. Seems nice. Midoriya's cheeks heated up so much he thought he had a fever. Yeah, my mom's nice. She's the best. A little embarrassing, But what mother isn't? Todoroki's eyes darkened. Did I say something wrong? Midoriya asked after noticing. Yes, Todoroki replied, not explaining anymore. Oh, okay. I'm sorry then. There was an awkward pause before Todoroki got up and packed his things. I'll see you tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. Todoroki left. Midoriya was so confused. What exactly did he say? Talking about how nice his mother is? Or embarrassing? Was Todoroki's mother just incredibly embarrassing or something? Midoriya went over the possibilities in his head. He didn't want to lose a potential friend. Eventually, Midoriya gave up on figuring out what it was that bothered Todoroki. If he didn't want to say it outright, then he definitely shouldn't pry. He packed up his things, making sure to send a text to his mom that he was leaving for the subway station. He slung his yellow backpack over his shoulders, then exited the building. Deku, a voice called out menacingly as Midoriya left the library. He froze in his steps, terrified. I need to talk to you, so don't you even think about running. Midoriya looked around, hoping someone was around to witness their conversation. He couldn't spot anyone and started sweating in panic. Yes, Kaken? He turned around to face the taller boy. What the F was that earlier today? You know, when you used a quirk you don't have. I just hid it all those years, Ka. Don't give me that bullshit. You can't even control it. You weren't even supposed to make it to Yui. I was gonna be the first from our shitty school to make it here, and you just had to ruin it, you piece of shit. Now, where'd you get that quirk, huh? Who'd you steal it from? Kaken grabbed the front of Midoriya's shirt. I didn't steal anything. Midoriya grabbed Bakugo's arm. I've just got a borrowed power for now. But I'm going to make it my own someday, just you watch. Borrowed? What the F is that supposed to mean, dumbass? He released Midoriya and shoved him away. Whatever. I'm still gonna beat your butt. You'll be wishing you never applied for Yui. He left the school grounds. Midoriya let out a sigh of relief. He never knew what Kaken would do. His emotions were as explosive as his quirk. He was incredibly glad that he didn't do anything to him, besides threaten him, but that was normal. He began heading for the train station. It was getting dark and he had a 45-minute train ride to look forward to. Luckily, his only real homework was the project, and he didn't have to start on it until tomorrow. After reaching home, he ate dinner with his mom and recollected his day. He talked about Ida and Uraraka, and how Kaken was in his class as well. Inko disliked that almost as much as Izuku did. He talked about all his teachers and how they all had such fascinating classes. Finally, the conversation reached Todoroki. I only saw a bit of his quirk today, but it's super strong. It was an ice quirk, and he had such amazing control over it. It looked like it could rival even Kaken's quirk. I wonder what would happen if the two would fight? Kaken's explosions could probably melt Todoroki's ice, but at the same time, Todoroki could probably freeze Kaken in place, Midoriya hypothesized. Oh, and we were also paired on this project over hero soulmates. That's who I was with when you called, by the way. Inko couldn't help but smile. All her son's life, he was bullied by other kids in his class. Now, it seemed like he was finally beginning to have some friends in his life. She just hoped that he could invite them over soon so she could meet them. It sounds like you had an interesting day, Izuku, Inko told her son. Now, why don't you start getting ready for bed? You've had a busy day and I don't think they'll get any easier. Yeah, you're right. Midoriya stood up, then went over to give his mom a hug. Night, Mom. Night, Izuku. Sleep tight. Izuku went to bed satisfied with his first day. He met some new people, learned a little bit about his quirk, and loved all of his classes, yes, even the math class. He knew high school was going to be one of the best times of his life. One day down, 3 more years to go. What do you think about our classmates this year? Todoroki read the text Yaoyorozu sent him. A few weeks prior to the start of the school year, the two were discussing possible classmates from rumors. They heard Ingenium's younger brother would be starting high school at Yui, meaning he must have made past the entrance exam. They heard of the top contender with his explosive quirk and personality. The two even heard the rumor of a guy who managed to be in the top 10 without getting a single point from an enemy. Nothing too impressive, quirk-wise, Todoroki texted back. Personality-wise, that's a different story. Yaoyorozu quickly responded, I agree. So many of our classmates are very interesting. One does stand out from the rest a little more to me. The guy who came dead last in the aptitude test today. Midoriya, was it? I found out from the girl who scored infinity on the throwing trial that he was the guy who made it without destroying a single enemy. Todoroki's eyes widened. Midoriya? Of course, the guy who destroyed the 0-point enemy and made it without defeating a single robot were one and the same. It was huge news that happened to get on Endeavor's radar. He simply couldn't stop complaining about how Yui was getting soft about who they allowed in nowadays. He figured it was the guy who had a 450-kilogram grip strength, not scrawny-looking Midoriya who was scared to even talk to him at first. His quirk was impressive, but he lacked control over it. I will have to agree with you, though. There is something there about him that stands out from the rest. Right? I can't quite put my finger on it. I'm paired up with him for the Soulmate project. Actually, Todoroki typed back. He's even more interesting once you talk to him. He shut his laptop, then grabbed his phone and made himself comfortable in his futon laid out on the tatami mat floor. It was nearing 10 o'clock, and he was incredibly tired, but the conversation he and Yaoyorozu was intriguing. Oh, lucky you, Yaoyorozu texted back. I'm stuck with that Bakugo guy. He's a menace to work with, and refuses to meet with me to discuss topics. I have a feeling I'll be doing all the work, while he slaps his name on it at the end. That SCKS, Todoroki agreed. No kidding. Did you and Midoriya meet to discuss topics? At his house, I'm assuming? Yes, but at the library instead. I left early. Todoroki, what did you do? He could just feel the exasperation coming from her. What do you mean? I didn't do anything. Because I know you. Your social skills and recognizing cues is well below average, Todoroki. Midoriya must have done something you didn't like, or the conversation was going nowhere so you just left. You should apologize before it causes a misunderstanding. Todoroki paused to think. Midoriya mentioned mothers and it really rubbed himself the wrong way. But now that he thinks about it, he did mention mothers first by giving Midoriya's mom a compliment. So perhaps an apology was in order. He mentioned mothers, so I just kind of shut down and left. You're right, I should apologize. Just as Todoroki sent the text to Yaoyorozu, a notification popped up that he had another text message. The contact name was Midoriya, with 3 different smiling emojis behind it. Hi, Todoroki. It's Midoriya. Sorry for texting you so late, I just wanted to make sure that we both had the right phone numbers. Not that I think you would purposely type the wrong one, but things happen, you know? I once exchanged numbers with someone last year, but accidentally typed in my mom's phone number T to the power of T. It was so embarrassing. He smiled while reading Midoriya's text. Even in text form, he rambled a bit. It was honestly so endearing to Todoroki. He began typing a reply, since Yaoyorozu had yet to send anything back. It's no problem, I'm still up anyways. You gave me the right number, so no need to worry. He sent that one, then began a new one. I think I owe you an apology for how I acted earlier. The topic of mothers is very touchy for me and I never explained that to you. I just expected you to know. I apologize. Todoroki stared at the text before copying it, deleting the message to Midoriya, then sending it to Yaoyorozu with quotes. How does this sound? He asked. She was already typing something when he sent the new text, so first came the original message. Todoroki, not everyone has gone through what you have gone through. Just like you've not gone through what everyone else has. It's beautiful, actually, thinking about life like that. I think if you stop assuming that everyone knows who you are and all of your life circumstances, you might be better at socializing. She followed it with, I think you should add in there, I have awful social skills and can't express my feelings, before the end. Really? Todoroki typed, surprised. No, that was sarcasm. Although, you couldn't really tell it was, so my bad. I think the message it fine to send to Midoriya. Todoroki went ahead and pasted the message back to Midoriya. He had yet to read the first message, so Todoroki assumed he fell asleep. I'm tired, so I'm going to go to sleep. I'll text you in the morning, Yaoyorozu. Good night. Good night, Todoroki. He turned off his phone and placed it face down beside his head. Todoroki tossed and turned for a few minutes before finding a comfortable position on his stomach, falling asleep almost instantly. Todoroki's peaceful sleep was ended by the annoying sound of a raging alarm on his phone. The time was 5 in the morning, and he was regretting staying up so late the previous night. He shut off the unbearably loud alarm, then rubbed his swollen eyes. He groaned, then got dressed for a jog. Todoroki grabbed his earbuds and phone, then headed out the door. He discovered Midoriya had sent him a text about 4:30 in the morning. "That's good that we both have the right number." Smiley face. "Oh, and you don't have to apologize, Todoroki. I had no clue and I do admit I was a little confused when you left, but I won't pry." Midoriya sent another text after that. "Ah, sorry if this was a little early and woke you up. I normally go jogging around this time, because it takes 45 minutes for me to get to Yui in the morning. What a coincidence, I'm going out for a jog now. And you didn't wake me up, my alarm did. I'm regretting staying up so late last night," Todoroki texted back. He plugged in his earbuds and then began blasting some music. He warmed up with some stretching and walking, then began to go full speed. He headed towards the beach closest to his home. It was rather strange because just a few months ago, it was completely filled with trash to where no one could even walk on it. Now, it's completely cleared and rather beautiful even. He loved jogging on the beach because of the relaxing waves and the extra workout the sand gave his legs. After reaching the edge of the water, Todoroki felt his phone buzz. It was a text from Midoriya. "Oh, I think I see you." Todoroki looked around him until he saw the waving silhouette of curly hair on the boardwalk above him. He waved back, watching as Midoriya started jogging towards him. "Hi, Todoroki." Midoriya was unnaturally perky for 5:30 in the morning. His smile was blinding and Todoroki almost had to squint to look at him. "Hi," Todoroki replied. "You don't mind if I jog with you, do you?" Midoriya asked. "I don't." The two began jogging up and down the beach for another half hour. They both kept the same pace and Todoroki was amazed that Midoriya's short legs could keep up with his much longer ones. As they reached one end of the beach, the two slowed down to a walk, then began talking about random subjects and thoughts for the year. Todoroki was impressed with how intelligent Midoriya was. Not many teenagers their age was as good as analyzing situations and details as Midoriya. In fact, Todoroki was sure that the only person who could give Midoriya a run for his money was Yaoyorozu. It would be interesting for the two of them to meet and talk, Todoroki thought. Eventually they reached the stairs and started a quick stair workout of jumps, lunges, and cardio. Todoroki was even more impressed with how fast Midoriya could go upstairs. He was done before Todoroki even reached 3/4 of the way up. After that, the time was 6. Midoriya had to be home by 6:15 and parted with Todoroki after saying, "See you later." He jogged in the opposite way of Todoroki's home. Todoroki also made his way home. He was greeted by the smell of grilled fish as he entered his house. Todoroki slipped off his tennis shoes and slid his worn slippers on. He made his way to the kitchen, where his sister was making breakfast. "Morning, Shudo," she greeted. Ever since their mom was put in the hospital, Fuyumi had taken over the maternal role, despite being only 4 years older than Todoroki. His other two brothers had moved out by the time they hit 18, never to been seen again and only sending a few notes and cards with money in them around Shudo and Fuyumi's birthdays. Even though Fuyumi was 19, she still lived with Endeavor and Shudo, just to help her baby brother with dealing with their father. Just like their mother, she would step in when training got too rough and would often convince Endeavor that her brother was busy with homework and couldn't train that night. All in all, she was wonderful to have around and Shudo was thankful that she sacrificed her freedom for him. "Morning. Where's father?" On a morning call, Fuyumi responded, then flipped the fish on the grill. "I'm making your favorite breakfast." "I see. I'll be back in a few minutes to eat." Shudo had a quick shower, then slipped on his school uniform. He made his way back to the kitchen where Fuyumi already had his breakfast sat out. Today, he had a large bowl of rice with natto on top, a few pieces of fish, and exactly 5 pieces of nori. His sister knew him well. They too both said, "Itadakimasu," before digging in. "I gave you some extra rice today, Shudo. Now that you've started at UE, you're gonna need the extra calories to keep up. Make sure you eat all of it," Fuyumi told her brother. "You also need your protein, so I gave you an extra piece of fish today." Shudo nodded. His sister had really grown up to be doting on her little brother. He finished his food, leaving only a few bites of the fish that he placed on his sister's rice, then cleaned up his dishes and put them away. After Fuyumi was done a few minutes later, he cleaned them up as well. Shudo had about half an hour until he needed to start his 20-minute walk to UE, so he began texting Yaoyorozu. "I think you and Midoriya would get along. Have you talked to him recently?" She replied a few seconds later. "Yeah. We ran into each other this morning while jogging. He's incredibly intelligent and very good at analyzing people and situations. He would make a very formidable hero and rival. If you introduce us, I'm sure I can put that to the test. Okay, I'll see if he wants to sit by us at lunch. But I also want to see if he is willing to still talk to me after this project is done." "I'm sure he will," Yaoyorozu assured him. "You're an enigma and I bet Midoriya will want to try to get to Konyu." "No you," she corrected. Maybe he agreed. He waited a few seconds before bringing up another topic. "Any leads on your soulmate?" "No, not so far. Not many in our class has brown hair, and pretty much none of them have dark brown hair. Perhaps maybe they're in another class? Or maybe another school. I just wish that I knew something about them. A name, a school, a favorite color, anything." She sent the text, then began typing again. "How is your search? There's only 2 with green hair in our class, Midoriya and Azui. And seeing as Azui is a girl, that leaves Midoriya. I don't think he's my soulmate," Todoroki confessed. "My soulmate's hair is the color of healthy fresh grass under the shade. His is more along the lines of a Christmas tree or some other coniferous tree. A bit too dark." That was oddly specific. "It's the only thing I remember about him, the color of his hair. I would recognize it anywhere. I can't remember his face, hairstyle, or voice. But I remember that. Besides, Bakugo is his childhood friend, and he said Midoriya doesn't have a soulmate. Bakugo did mention that Midoriya dyed his hair so that he'd have 2 soulmates. If those colors were red and white, maybe he actually is your soulmate?" "Yaoyorozu. He's not. I think I would recognize if he was my soulmate no matter what. There's supposed to be some kind of a pull, right? I believe that's what Ida mentioned yesterday as he ranted about wanting to find soulmates. His older brother must have told him about soulmates. There you have it. He's not my soulmate. If you say so, Todoroki. Anyway, I'm about to head onto the subway right now. Talk to you at school?" "Okay," Todoroki texted back. He checked the time, then headed to the Gen-can to put on his shoes. He sat on the step and slipped them on, tying them tightly on his foot. He grabbed his bag right by the door, then walked to the door. "Have a nice day at school," Fuyumi called out to him. "I'll try," he shouted back to her, then headed out the door. Todoroki was one of the first in the classroom. He took his seat in the back and began observing the room. The invisible girl was having a quiet and cheery discussion with the girl with pastel purple hair in double braids. The blonde guy in the front, Kaminari, was taking a nap. Ida sat next to him and began to scold him for sleeping before class started. One by one, students began trickling into the classroom until Yaoyorozu finally showed up. She deposited her bag at her desk in the front row, then sat in Midoriya's chair since he had yet to arrive and began to chat with him. They discussed the soulmate paper and Todoroki even helped Yaoyorozu pick topics and suggested ways to approach Bakugo, some more comical than others. "Maybe if you used your quirk to make him a cage and something to cancel out his quirk, you'd be able to have a nice discussion with him," Todoroki suggested. Yaoyorozu chuckled. "But, Todoroki, I don't think. That'd make him want to talk about soulmates and ideas for our paper. Maybe I could get you to freeze him and then we could have a lovely discussion." The topic eventually switched to something else, and the two were chatting away until Bakugo came storming into the classroom. He approached Yaoyorozu and slammed a folded piece of paper onto the desk she was sitting at. "Here," he grumbled. "Proofread it, add to it, do whatever, then turn it in. But my name goes first." He walked over to his desk, then flopped into his chair and put his feet on the desk. Ida immediately walked over to scold him about giving the class a bad name by soiling the desks their seniors used. Yaoyorozu began to skim through the paper he gave to her. It was an immaculate paper, albeit written in the handwriting of a fourth grader with a few kanji errors. His topic was Jespar and his hero soulmate Flera. Yaoyorozu was impressed with the paper. She thought Bakugo had gotten into Yui by his power alone. Who would have thought he had a brain as well? I guess I don't have to do as much work as I thought, she told Todoroki. About 10 minutes before school started, Midoriya came jogging in the classroom. At this point, it was boisterous with conversations between students. Yaoyorozu told Todoroki she'd talk to him later, then moved back to her seat. Midoriya sat down, slightly out of breath. He wiped a few beads of sweat off of his forehead, then greeted Todoroki. "Phew, I was almost late." "Morning, Todoroki." "Morning," he returned. Todoroki turned the other way to stare out of the large window. It wasn't like he was blatantly ignoring Midoriya. There were just too much talking and too many people in the room. He was growing exhausted by the second just being there and needed a little bit of time to himself. The day began with Aizawa taking roll in the morning and passing out the sign-up sheet for the soulmate class. He gave everyone until the end of the day to sign up for a hero with a soulmate. When it came to Todoroki, he was pleased to find that the hero they agreed on wasn't taken. He signed up for Spike Shooter beside his and Midoriya's names, then passed it along. The morning classes went by relatively fast. He received homework in nearly every class, but it wasn't anything too difficult. Lunch arrived, and Todoroki invited Midoriya, Ida, and Uraraka to sit with Yaoyorozu and him. The trio accepted, of course, and found themselves across from Yaoyorozu and Todoroki after introductions. Everyone but Midoriya ate food from the cafeteria. "I have dietary restrictions," Midoriya explained when prompted by Yaoyorozu. "Oh, it is medical-related or Quirk-related?" she asked. "Quirk-related. I'm sure you saw how I broke my finger during the aptitude test, so my mom told me to start eating foods with more calcium and protein. I also have to take a multivitamin as well," Midoriya revealed, his index finger nervously scratching his temple. But I'm sure if you explained to Lunch Rush your situation, he could make food tailored to you. It'd save your mom money in the long run as well," Yaoyorozu suggested. "I couldn't possibly do that. It's just a meal and I wouldn't want to bother him." "I'm sure he wouldn't mind." Uraraka chimed in. "I mean, think about how much food he's had to make for other students that come through. Think about how much food he had to cook for All Might." "I have to agree with Uraraka, Midoriya," Ida commented. "I'm sure that the seniors that paved our way had certain dietary needs as well. You shouldn't let a small worry such as bothering someone to ask for more food." "I guess you're right," he admitted. "I'll ask tomorrow." "Itadakimasu." He dug into his lunch, as did the rest of his classmates. Todoroki loved to observe others for a number of reasons. Sometimes, a person's mannerisms can give away their battle strategy. Yaoyorozu told him he should try watching others in social situations so he can better his social skills. He mostly observed others because it was interesting to see how a person acts when they thought no one was watching too closely. Take for example Todoroki's current observational target, Midoriya. He was a messy eater, as Todoroki discovered while watching him eat rice. Several grains were falling onto his shirt while others piled onto his upper lip. Growing up, Todoroki hadn't been around many messy eaters. Dinners with his whole family, including Endeavor, were stiff, everyone taking small bites and chewing excessively to avoid small talk. Eating together with his siblings and mother was a different story. Everyone, save for Kajiro, still had their taught nature of small bites and clean eating, but it was more boisterous and fun. It was especially interesting watching Kajiro eat a giant bowl of rice in less than 5 minutes, rice flying everywhere. "Did you even taste it?" his mother would joke. The memory filled Todoroki warmth, and he felt the sides of his mouth tug up every so slightly. They fell back down almost as quick as they rose after feeling someone's eyes on him. He blinked a few times, then stared directly in front of him at Midoriya. His eyes were wide with thought, with a few grains of rice still stuck on his lips. "You have a little something," Todoroki told Midoriya, pointing to his own lips and pretending to wipe something off. "Oh." Midoriya exclaimed. He hastily wiped his lips with both hands, double-checking that he got everything with another swipe. Thank you, Todoroki. I'm kind of messy eater, if you haven't noticed already. He scratched the back of his neck. My mom says I should be more conscious of other people when I eat, because not everyone likes a messy eater. I don't mind. It reminds me of someone I know. Ah. Midoriya didn't pry, and Todoroki was thankful for that. He was very glad that Midoriya could pick up when he didn't want to delve more into a personal subject. Not many respected his boundaries like that. Lunch ended with minimal small talk, mostly between Midoriya and Yaoyorozu. Todoroki wasn't kidding when he told her the two would get along. They mostly discussed quirks, especially the advantages and disadvantages of the quirks within their class. Uraraka and Ida occasionally pitched in with a few comments, but mostly participated in their own discussion together. Todoroki just watched as his friend from middle school and the newest contender for the open position of friend interacted. After lunch was the hero training portion of day. Supposedly, the class had 6 different teachers for the hero portion that would switch every week, so the activities would change constantly. Yesterday, Midnight was in charge of the introduction to the class. She explained that the training took the place of PE and would still be graded by their performances. I am here. A voice boomed before the door was opened to reveal All Might. Several gasps and cheers echoed around the room. Todoroki noticed Midoriya's eyes light up and his smile widen. I'm not here to waste time, so everyone, change into your requested hero costumes and meet me at the beta grounds. After everyone had arrived in their costumes, Todoroki began to compare his to his classmates' costumes. He had opted for something simple yet functional, while others certainly had more flashy costumes in mind. Midoriya was late, nearly sprinting to reach everyone else. Midoriya's costume was simple like his, but bared a bit of a resemblance to All Might. The smile, the 2 antennae on the top of his head, Todoroki will admit it made him look almost like a green rabbit, looked extremely familiar. Todoroki guessed either Midoriya was a huge All Might fanboy, or there was something else. All Might wasted no time in explaining the training activity. The class was to be split into teams of 2 with a lucky draw and pitted team against team, one dubbed heroes, and the other villains. The villain's job was to protect a designated weapon for 10 minutes, while the heroes were assigned to retrieve it within that time limit. Todoroki was paired with a very short girl, barely standing above his shoulders. She had lavender-colored hair braided into 2 braids, the left one containing a dark pink strand. Hello. I'm Mitsugawa Kasumi, she cheerily introduced herself. Todoroki Shuto, he replied back. The pair was assigned as Team C. Todoroki glanced over at the rest of his classmates. Uraraka and Midoriya were paired up as Team B. Ida and Yaoyorozu were Team E, while Kaminari and Bakugo were paired as Team A. Each day, there will be a series of 3 matchups until the end of the week, All Might explained. The goal of this training is to work with your partner and their quirks to produce the best results possible. It emulates real life, because not everyone at a scene has corresponding quirks, or quirks that work well together. Try and work together, okay? Now, the first match will be between Team B and Team F, with Team F as the villains. You'll have 5 minutes for both sides to prepare, starting now. Todoroki and Mitsugawa stood in front of the building, map in hand. The two both analyzed possibilities of where the weapon could be and the quickest ways to get it. Their opponents were Azui and Zero, both who could use long-distance quirks. The best strategy was to immobilize both, then retrieve the weapon. My quirk deals with herbal scents, Mitsugawa explained. I can emit any scent from a plant, as long as I know what it does and how it smells. She held up the thick book clipped onto her belt. That's why I carry this with me. Perfect, Todoroki replied. Would it be possible for us to split and for you to use your quirk to make them unconscious? It depends if I have to use it beforehand. I have to let it cool down at least 2 minutes in between uses, otherwise it begins to mix and blend and can end up toxic for everyone. The further discussed strategy until they were interrupted by All Might's booming voice. Heroes, you may now enter the building. You go on ahead to the top floor, I'll look around the halls. I'll meet you there in 5 minutes. Todoroki instructed to Mitsugawa. Got it, she replied, running on ahead. Todoroki immediately headed to the third floor, the halfway point between the top and ground floors. Siro's quirk was useful not only in a ranged fight, but also as a trap. He figured at some point before the top floor, the stairways or hallways would be tampered with or closed off, but there was nothing on the first few floors. It was until the third floor that he noticed the tape blocking him from the fourth floor. It was already cut into, so Todoroki knew that Mitsugawa had found a way up. There was tape blocking him from turning left into the hallway. Todoroki turned right, following the path until he reached another blocked hallway on the opposite side of the stairs near the second stairway. He heard the tape coming from behind him, so he quickly formed a wall of ice to block it. Ah, why couldn't I have gotten to face the pretty girl? Siro complained. She at least looked like someone I could handle. Todoroki froze the entire floor including Siro's feet and gave himself the upper hand. He charged out from behind his ice wall at Siro, dodging any tape shot at him. He brushed past Siro and froze his right arm completely. He then stopped abruptly and turned back to his left elbow and grabbed it as well. Todoroki left the scene, ignoring Siro's cries of, "Hey, no fair." Todoroki followed the stairs up to the top floor, where he met Mitsugawa in a one-on-one battle with Azui. "Todoroki," she called, avoiding Azui's tongue. "I have 30 seconds left. Mind helping me out here?" He started using one of his favorite quirk tricks, ice surfing, to head over to the weapon. He was only a few meters away when he felt someone crash into him and knock him off of the ice. "I'm not the best at hand-to-hand combat," Mitsugawa admitted, rolling off of Todoroki. "Air, hand-to-tongue combat?" The timer on her wrist began beeping excruciatingly loud. "Now we're in business. I hope you can hold your breath for a long time." Todoroki took that as instructions and began holding his breath. He plugged his nose and covered his mouth too, just in case. Light green mist began emanating off of Mitsugawa, permeating the entire room. Azui, who was charging on all fours towards him and Mitsugawa, suddenly dropped once the mist hit her. Mitsugawa casually sauntered over to the weapon and touched it. The mist began dissipating and Todoroki's chest was slowly burning. He let go of his breath when he thought almost all of it was gone, gasping for breath and holding his chest. "Sorry about that," Mitsugawa apologized as they walked out of the building together. "I don't have as much control over my quirk as I would like." "It didn't bother me," Todoroki assured. "Your quirk is rather strong." They reached the rest of the students, where All Might introduced a quick discussion about what each person did right or wrong, and what they could have done differently for better results. Yaoyorozu, of course, led most of the discussion. The next two battles were between Team D, the purple-haired girl and the invisible girl, and Team G, the guy with a crow head and the guy with the laser naval quirk. It ended quickly, with the crow head guy Tokoyami. Todoroki learned sweeping everyone out of the way with his quirk, Dark Shadow. The naval laser guy did nothing to help and was instead a hassle. The final battle was Team I, Pink Girl and the hardening quirk guy, versus Team H, the guy with a tail and the one with several arms. Team I ended up winning by successfully defending the weapon for the 10 minutes. "All of you did a wonderful job today," All Might announced after the last group had finished and rejoined the rest of the uninjured class. "Training is over, make sure to head back to your classrooms." He immediately began sprinting away, leaving everyone dumbstruck. The class all exchanged confused looks before heading back to their classroom. Today's lesson is about primary soulmate connections. Aizawa began the lesson. He wrote on the chalkboard the words, platonic and romantic, leaving a wide gap between the two and underlining them both. The most basic form of primary soulmate connection is attraction. Not deciding if a person is good-looking or not. It's more of a magnetic attraction to a person, drawing them to you with no other explanation. There is a major difference between platonic and romantic attraction. Does anyone know what it is? Ida raised his hand high, then stood up when Aizawa called on him. "Yes, sir. Platonic attraction is much stronger, because it is much harder to find your platonic soulmate by hair tint alone. The attraction is so strong that if two platonic soulmates are in a building at the same time, they unknowingly will meet. A romantic attraction is harder to notice, but you are still drawn to your soulmate. Thank you, Ida. Ida bowed, then took his seat. As it was just explained, platonic soulmate attraction is much stronger to make up for how hard it is to find one by streak alone. Romantic is much weaker, because the romantic hair streak is much more prominent that it is easier to find your other half. Aizawa quickly scribbled bullet points under both categories. In this society, more and more people are dyeing their hair, making it much harder for romantic soulmates to discover their partner by looks alone. So, how do they find them? A single touch begins the transition from primary to secondary attraction. Could be a brush of the skin, a handshake, or a punch during a fight. By touching your soulmate, you create a link between the two of you. It's very weak, almost like a strip of paper taped to the both of you that can be ripped at any time. But the more you're around your soulmate, the more you two touch. Okay, enough giggling. Aizawa interrupted himself. Kaminari, Kirishima, one more peep from you and you'll be turning in whatever you have written so far on your paper. They both closed their mouths and stared ahead with an intense, neutral expression. Haven't started, have you? Aizawa remarked. As I was saying, the more you and your soulmate touch, the stronger your connection gets, until it reaches the secondary stage. Platonic and romantic soulmates differ in how many attraction stages they have. Platonic has 3, while romantic has 5. He wrote the numbers under both categories. They'll be discussed much later. Any questions so far? Mitsugawa raised her hand. So, what happens if you just randomly meet your soulmate in a public place and some stranger you don't know brushes against you and now you're connected? Like, does the connection fade over time, or does it just become incredibly weak? Aizawa answered, the connection is severed after several weeks of no contact. It differs for everyone. It could break after a week of no contact, or even keep the pair connected for up to a year. There are several factors to this, including if you were ever in their presence again, or how strong the initial attraction was. Platonic primary connections usually take longer to break, if they ever break at all. Romantic connections are very easy to break. Yayorozu raised her hand as soon as Aizawa was done with his explanation. You mentioned something about connection strengths. Does this have to do with the difference between platonic and romantic soulmates, or does a connection strength vary from person to person? Children have higher connection strengths than adults. Their feelings are more sincere, much stronger than in adults, so the connection can last much longer. This is a double-edged sword, however. The longer a child's connection to their soulmate goes on without reinforcement of their presence, the more painful and traumatic it is. Todoroki was filled with curiosity. What would have happened if he had met his soulmate all those years? It could have been an escape from endeavor, for possibly both him and his mom. Perhaps he could have even lived with his soulmate. His mom seemed nice enough. Or it could have gone the opposite direction, with endeavor separating the two and causing the traumatic pain Sensei was talking about. He shuddered just thinking about it. His childhood was already filled with pain. He didn't need any more added to it. Sensei, Azui started, you've been mentioning this connection the entire time, but I'm so confused. What is it? Aizawa began writing a definition on the board. In a nutshell, it's a link to your soulmate. It's just a feeling at the beginning, but grows to where you can supposedly feel their presence from kilometers away. Some people have even reported being able to communicate telepathically, but personally I think it was just their quirks. Any more questions? Yeah, who's your soulmate, Sensei? Kaminari asked. Aizawa sighed. Any other questions besides stupid ones? Oh, come on, Sensei, the pink girl called out. We're just curious. I don't know who it is, nor do I ever want to know, Aizawa answered. I'm done teaching. Just meet with your partner for the rest of class and discuss ideas. If you haven't already signed up for a topic, I suggest you do that by the end of class. That he walked out. Midoriya turned to look at Todoroki. Today has been so interesting. Has it? Todoroki asked nonchalantly. It most certainly has been interesting today, but he wouldn't outwardly admit it. Instead, he wanted Midoriya to talk about what he thought was interesting. Definitely, Midoriya exclaimed. I mean, the first half of the day was surprisingly normal, But the second half was quite amazing. Your battle was just so cool. Like, you have such a cold exterior, no pun intended, and you were surprisingly cooperative. I honestly expected you to freeze the whole building and do everything yourself, but you worked well with Mitsugawa. I'm thoroughly impressed. That made Todoroki wonder, why didn't he just handle the battle by himself? Midoriya had a point. He definitely could have froze the entire building and just collected the weapon by himself. What made him decide to work as a team? Anyway, I have mixed feelings on not participating today, Midoriya continued. On one hand, I could collect data from afar. But at the same time, it's sometimes easier in a battle, because then you can see a person's weaknesses and strengths firsthand. That reminds me, I need to make a note to write down everything later. He began rummaging through his bag for his notebook and pencil. Perhaps it was Midoriya rubbing off on him that caused Todoroki to cooperate with Mitsugawa. He had only known him for a day, but his cheery, extroverted nature had already begun to affect Todoroki. And for some reason he wasn't bothered by it. Oh yeah, Todoroki, what did you think of your fight? I want to hear a first-hand account of it. Midoriya interrupted his thoughts. It was okay, Todoroki replied. Mitsugawa has a strong quirk. I admire her. Really? Todoroki nodded. Okay then, if you say so. There was a pause before Todoroki asked, Are we still meeting at the library? Yeah, of course, Midoriya replied. The bell rang for school to be over, and the duo packed up their stuff and walked over together. They began working on the rough draft, finishing it in about an hour. This time, Midoriya made sure to text his mother to remind her that the two would be staying after school. Todoroki was glad, because he didn't really want anyone to interrupt them working on the project. It was still light out when they finished, and Todoroki wanted to delay going home as much as possible. He offered to walk Midoriya to the train station. No, you don't have to. Midoriya protested. I mean, I'm completely fine walking on my own. I understand that, Todoroki told him. But I'm still going to anyway. He didn't dare tell him that he was doing it because he didn't want to go home. That would lead to questions that Todoroki didn't want to answer, and most likely misunderstandings between himself and Midoriya. Their possible friendship was just in the making, and he didn't want to ruin it the second day of school. They silently left the library and began walking. Todoroki desperately wanted to start a conversation with Midoriya about something, but he didn't know how. Should he just mention a subject, then start talking about it? Ask Midoriya something? Tell him a fun fact? A joke? So, Midoriya started for him. Sensei's soulmate lecture was interesting. It was, Todoroki agreed. There was an awkward silence. What was he supposed to say? I learned something new. Yeah, me too. Unfortunately, I don't have a soulmate, so it wouldn't really apply to me. Midoriya stared down at his feet, avoiding eye contact with Todoroki. What about you, Todoroki? Do you have one? He nodded. Have you met them yet? Midoriya persisted. Kinda. Wow. I'm jealous. Todoroki noticed something different in Midoriya's voice. It wasn't jealousy that Todoroki had a soulmate and Midoriya didn't. It was more along the lines that Midoriya was jealous that he had met his soulmate, but Midoriya hadn't yet. Which, of course, was impossible if Midoriya didn't have a soulmate. The rest of the walk was filled with an awkward silence. Neither boy said a word until Midoriya reached the gate and squeaked out a bye, before swiping his pass and walking away. Todoroki left feeling uneasy. There was just so many things he wanted to say about today, he just couldn't find the right words for them. Before he could head home, Todoroki's phone vibrated with a text. I'm sorry that was so awkward. I just never know what to say sometimes, you know? Anyway, is there any way we could meet up at the beach tomorrow at about 5:30? I enjoyed jogging with you this morning. Smiley face. There was a second text sent shortly after. Wow, I didn't realize I put anyway twice in the same sentence. Aw, T to the power of T. Todoroki smiled before pocketing his phone and starting on the 30-minute trek home. Oh, Shuto, Fuyumi said as he walked in the door. She was curled on the couch under a blanket while watching TV. You're a little late. Yeah, he agreed. Is the old man here? He slipped out of his shoes and put on his slippers. No. He called earlier to say he'll be out of town until next Monday. That's the best news I've heard this week. Agreed. Shudo immediately made his way to his room to strip his school uniform off and exchanged it for lounge clothes. He was grateful Endeavor wasn't around until Monday. That meant he could relax a little and train on his own time without sparring with his father. He sat at his desk and worked on homework for about an hour. Shudo took a short break by checking his phone. Midoriya and Yaoyorozu both left him texts. I made it home, just in case you were wondering. I mean, you did walk me to the station, so I figured you were a bit worried. Oh, thank you for that, BDW. .. Todoroki nearly smiled at Midoriya's text. There always seemed to be some kind of emoticon in his texts. It fit him well, seeing different smiley faces from Midoriya. Todoroki, I don't think Bakugo was as smart as I originally thought. There are so many more kanji mistakes than what I saw this morning. And he has so much more written out in hiragana than necessary. I feel like it'll take a while to decipher what exactly he meant. Sounds like you have a lot of work to do, Todoroki replied to Yaoyorozu. He then looked back at Midoriya's text and responded, I'm glad you made it. And it's fine if we meet up tomorrow. I'll be there. After responding, he changed into workout clothes to go train. Shudo loved it when his father was gone for several days on end. It was a break from his constant anger, a de-stressor, and a chance for him to practice his fire side in private. Shudo vowed to never use his fire side in a fight ever since the accident with his mother years ago. He completely blamed his father and his abuse for her mental instability, and would most definitely never use that side of his quirk against a person. Using his quirk on objects was a different story. Shudo knew that sometime down the road he would have to use his fire quirk to save someone, be it to warm them up or help them escape from somewhere with ice. He made sure to train his quirk to keep it under control to prevent an accident. After training for a few hours, he headed back to his room and changed. He was sweaty and slightly out of breath, so he just laid on the floor and used his quirk to cool himself down. He checked the phone beside his head and saw that Midoriya had sent him back a text saying, "Okay, see you then." Shudo turned off his phone and set his alarm. He then snuggled into his futon and fell asleep, eagerly awaiting the next day. True to his word, Midoriya found Todoroki waiting for him at the beach a few minutes before 5:30. His hair was messy, the red and white mixed with no indication of where his center part was. Todoroki's face was shiny, with beads of sweat dripping down his forehead. He was taking deep, irregular breaths like he wanted to conceal the fact he was out of breath. I overslept, he admitted while stretching. You still made it before I did, Midoriya pointed out. The two jogged together silently. The only sounds Midoriya could hear was the lull of the ocean waves and the muffled melodies coming from Todoroki's earbuds. They jogged several laps together, then did a quick workout, away from the sand of course. They parted ways, both agreeing to meet up at the same time again. Midoriya jogged back to his apartment. Arriving at his floor, he silently unlocked the door in hopes of not disturbing his mom. He tiptoed to the bathroom, peeling off the sweaty clothes and throwing them in the hamper. He hopped in the cool shower for a quick rinse and scrub, then put on his school uniform after drying off. He began blow-drying his hair, since it was so thick that it wouldn't be completely dry from air drying until the evening. His mom was up by this point. She had put on the daily news, a habit she developed a year ago after Izuku had the run-in with a villain, and had begun fixing breakfast. The smell of tea and rice permeated the air, making Izuku's stomach growl with hunger. He sat at the table and began hungrily attacking the fresh rice his mother placed in front of him. The mother and son exchanged small talk about Yui until they were both done. Izuku cleaned the dishes and instructed his mom not to bother making lunch for him. "I can just eat at school," he told her while scrubbing his rice bowl. "Are you sure? It's really no bother making your food." "I'm sure. The school can cater to my dietary needs." Inko sighed. "Okay then, sweetie." She ruffled her son's hair. "I just want what's best for my Izuku. And if that means making your lunch every day." "Mom," Izuku warned. "Okay. I get it." Inko smiled at her son. It was less than 10 minutes later that Izuku put on his red shoes and was on his way to the train station. "Oh, Deku!" Midoriya heard Uraraka shout from behind him as he walked up to Yui. He froze immediately because normally hearing death meant trouble for him. But surely not from Uraraka? Deku? He asked incredulously once she caught up. Isn't that your name? She asked, head tilted in confusion. I heard Bakugo call you that several times. Aren't you childhood friends? No. I mean yes to childhood friends, but no to my name. It's actually Midoriya Izuku. Kaken calls me that as an insult, Midoriya explained. Well, that's just not nice. A new voice joined in. He turned to his right to find Mitsugawa trailing just behind him and Uraraka. I detest bullies. Oh, Kasumi, good morning. Uraraka greeted. Morning, Ochako, Mitsugawa replied. Midoriya was baffled. The two were already on a first-name basis, yet he could have sworn they had only been talking since yesterday's training class. They did sit next to each during classes, so more interactions could have happened them. Midoriya, you're spacing out, Mitsugawa told him, snapping her fingers in front of his face, and rambling. Sorry. I do that a lot. He nervously laughed afterwards. Anyways, Mitsugawa went on, why don't you stand up to Bakugo? From what I've seen he's an a-hole to everyone, but especially you. I shouldn't really. He's just a childhood friend and he's just like that. Midoriya. That could just be his personality, but it doesn't mean you have to deal with it. If you ever need someone to help stand up to him, just let me know. I'll give him a piece of my mind. Mitsugawa clenched her fists in excitement. Me too. Uraraka agreed. She pounded her left fist into her cupped right hand. Midoriya was strangely intimidated by the small girl, who couldn't be taller than 150 centimeters, in front of him. He felt like she could take Bakugo on and live to tell the tale. Thank you both, but I'm fine. Midoriya assured them. Kaken is just Kaken. Alright, but if you ever need someone to fight him, you know where to find me. The three walked together, mostly discussing Uraraka and Mitsugawa's soulmates. I'm pretty sure mine is Tsuyu, Uraraka told them. But I have yet to see her soulmate streak. I think it's hidden or she dyes her hair. It seems unlikely that she does, because her hair matches my streak perfectly. Maybe you should ask her? Mitsugawa suggested. Uraraka blushed the color of a ripened cherry. No way. I mean she's really, really cute, and we're just becoming friends. I don't want to ruin any chances. She looked away, still blushing and pressing her index fingers together shyly. Alright then. But at least you have an inkling of who your soulmate is, Ochako. How many people do you see every day with bright pink hair? I'm probably not gonna find mine for quite some time, to tell you the truth, Mitsugawa admitted. Don't worry, Kasumi. Sure you'll find them. Uraraka cheered on her friend. The conversation drifted off into silence until they reached the locker rooms to change their shoes. Midoriya was surprised to see that Todoroki was not there yet. He checked his watch to find that he had arrived about 10 minutes earlier than the past few days. He sat in his seat and checked his phone for any hero news. Todoroki walked in a few minutes later and silently took his seat, mumbling a good morning to Midoriya. He still seemed half asleep like he was this morning. Morning classes seemed to take no time at all. Before Midoriya knew it, it was already lunchtime. Uraraka had opted to sit with Hagakure, Mitsugawa, and Azui today, to which Midoriya and Ida both eagerly told her to go. Midoriya had tried lunch rushes cooking today, requesting double the protein and foods with plenty of calcium. It was delicious, but nowhere near his mom's cooking. The conversations during lunch were mostly about heroes, the recent news, with a little soulmate discussion here and there. It made Midoriya frustrated that he had to dye his hair all those years ago to keep from being bullied so bad, and even more frustrated that he had to lie about his soulmates existing. He wanted to join in on the soulmate conversations, talk about how much he wanted to meet his two soulmates. Since he was at the same school with Kaken, he didn't have those luxuries. Finally, lunch had ended. After arriving back at the classroom, Midoriya couldn't help but squirm in his seat. He was excited to find out who he and Uraraka were paired up against. Ida and Yaoyorozu would be his first choice to go against. He already knew what their quirks were and could devise a strategy to exploit any weaknesses. He figured Koda and Sato would be rather difficult to plan against. But the other group he could go against was Bakugo and Kirishima. He hoped more than anything else that he didn't get paired against them. With Bakugo, he could probably handle himself, but Uraraka probably couldn't have a fair chance against Kaminari's Quirk. After All Might arrived, the whole class changed and headed to the training grounds. Team A against Team B. All Might announced. Midoriya's mood immediately dropped. This was what he was afraid of. He bit his bottom lip and began brainstorming. He glanced over at Kaken to see a triumphant smile on his face, his hands twitching in anticipation. Team A will be the heroes. Both groups will have 5 minutes to prepare. Starting now. Midoriya and Uraraka entered the building. Midoriya tried ignoring the concerned looks Uraraka was giving him, thinking of a plan instead. Where should we put the weapon? Uraraka asked immediately. The top floor? No, Midoriya disagreed. Everyone else put the weapon there yesterday. We need to pick a different floor. There are several rooms on the second floor, why not try one of them? I'll secure it in one of them. You go on ahead and set traps with your Quirk at all of the stairwells to make it look like we hit it on the top floor. Got it. Uraraka touched her shoes before running on ahead. Midoriya picked a windowless room near the farthest point from the stairwell. He placed the weapon in the far right corner. He heard Uraraka begin speaking into the earpieces they received. I set several traps along the stairs and hallways starting the 3rd floor and up, even placing a lot towards the back rooms on the top floor. I'm on the 3rd floor going down to the 2nd floor now. Where are you? Midoriya instructed Uraraka where he was, and within 30 seconds she arrived at the door. There were a surprising amount of objects and rubble just lying around on the ground. She exclaimed, I wonder if All Might did that on purpose because of my Quirk? Heroes, you may now enter the building. All Might's voice boomed over the intercom. Okay, Uraraka, here's the plan. Try following Kaken and Kaminari as best you can. When they get to the top floor, use your Quirk to release all of the traps you made, then run back here as fast as possible. Try to avoid Kaken. He'll probably split from Kaminari in search of me. Let me know when they reach the 4th floor and I'll start patrolling. You'll just leave the weapon? Uraraka asked incredulously. Midoriya nodded. Kaken is upset with me because of my Quirk. He won't care about winning this training session. All he will want to do is beat me, which will give us the perfect opportunity to stall. Watch out for Kaminari too. His Quirk involves electricity, so it may be used at a range. I have no clue of his weaknesses either. I'll try my best. Good luck to you too. Uraraka gave Midoriya a thumbs up. She exited the room, tiptoeing towards the stairs. Midoriya could already hear Bakugo's loud voice from the stairwell. Deku probably hid it on the 4th or 3rd floor, he said. You take the 3rd, I'll take the 4th. If you can't find anything, meet me on the 5th. Whoa, look at these floating rocks. Kaminari exclaimed. Their voices began to diminish until all Midoriya could hear was the sound of his breathing and heart rate. Approximately 5 minutes passed before Midoriya heard Uraraka whisper to him via earpiece, Bakugo has started heading up to the 4th floor. Kaminari was already there and is heading to the 5th floor, I think. Got it, Midoriya replied. He exited the room, weaving through the hallways to the only stairwell on the floor. As he saw the stairs in sight, he heard the rumble of several objects hitting the ground at the same time. Within 30 seconds, Uraraka was at the stairs. I think they stayed on the 5th floor to try and figure out if we were there. Bakugo seemed really angry. She took a few deep breaths to calm her breathing. Perfect. Go on ahead to the weapon and barricade the room any way you can. I'll hold Bakugo and Kaminari here. Okay. Uraraka ran off. Bakugo arrived down the stairs moments later, screaming, Deku, you be. He stopped in front of Midoriya for a few seconds before rearing his right arm back and stepping forward. Midoriya sidestepped and grabbed him around the waist, throwing him into a wall. There were only 2 minutes left in the training session according to the clock on the wall. His job was to stall Kaken until then. Where's Kaminari? Midoriya asked, backing away from Kaken. Underneath a bunch of rocks thanks to that girlfriend of yours. Pretty sure he electrified himself stupid too. Bakugo got back up, running towards Midoriya. He tried punching Midoriya again, but kicked with his left leg, landing a hit right on Midoriya's ribs. The smaller boy collapsed onto his hands and knees and began coughing. Bakugo grabbed him by the hair to force him to look up. "Why don't you use your quirk? Are you scared? Or was that all a fluke the other day?" He slammed Midoriya's head into the wall, letting go and allowing him to get up. Midoriya had greatly underestimated Kaken. He knew what punch he always started a fight in, but he had never gotten past the first punch before. Of course, he would adapt to the fight. He got up and looked at Kaken. "Now, come at me with your quirk, Deku." Midoriya didn't want to use it. He knew that one punch and his arm would be shattered again. There was only a minute 20 left, surely he could stall long enough? Midoriya ran towards Kaken, feinting right then heading left with a hook swing. Too slow. Kaken grabbed his arm, then used his quirk to blast him away into the wall. There was blood dripping from Midoriya's mouth. He angrily wiped it away, looking at the clock. Only 1 minute now, he could do this. Kaken began charging him. Midoriya ran to meet him halfway, engaging in a series of quick punches and dodges. Eventually, Midoriya landed a punch on Kaken's stomach, but it only moved him a few inches back. He punched Midoriya back in the same spot, only much harder. As Midoriya was pushed back a few feet, Kaken aimed his right hand at Midoriya, left hand pulling something. All he could hear was the sound of All Might yelling, "Young Bakugo, no!" before his vision went red and burned. Midoriya landed on the opposite wall again, his vision blurry and dizzy. He eventually got his vision to focus, just as Kaken was within 10 feet of him. Panicking, Midoriya activated his quirk, punching Kaken across the hallway into the opposite wall. The wind produced from the punch blew all around his face, sending a cold chill down his spine. His arm was broken, along with possibly a few ribs. He collapsed forward, just as the clock hit 0. When Midoriya woke up, he was greeted by the soft white walls of Recovery Girl's office. All Might, in his true form, was sitting right next to his bed, worriedly waiting on him to wake up. Midoriya blinked a few times, then rubbed his eyes. "All Might?" he asked. "Midoriya, my boy. Glad you're awake." Recovery Girl turned around in her swivel chair. She cleared her throat before talking. "I healed you all up. A broken arm, 3 broken ribs, a concussion, and a slightly dislocated shoulder. You're free to go to class and pick your things up. Don't forget to change out of your costume as well." Midoriya got up out of the bed and left, noticing the dirty look Recovery Girl gave All Might. After he changed back into his school uniform, he headed back to grab his backpack. A few people were still in the classroom, talking and packing up a few of their things. "Oh, Midoriya," Kirishima called out to him. "That was incredible, man. You just defeated Bakugo with 1 punch. It was so cool." The other few who were in the room came over and talked to him about his quirk and battle for a few minutes. In the end, he received more phone numbers from his classmates and a few invites to some study groups for tests down the road. He politely excused himself and grabbed his bag, then exited the room. He checked his phone to find that Todoroki had sent him a text. "I took notes for you during the Soulmate class." Smiling, Midoriya replied, "Thank you, Todoroki. Are you at the library, Arin?" Midoriya began heading towards the library. He found Todoroki at the usual table, typing furiously away at one of the library laptops. From the looks of it, he was nearly done with their paper. Midoriya silently took a seat next to him and stared at the screen, not wanting to disturb Todoroki. After the last sentence was typed, Todoroki finally looked up at Midoriya. "Are you okay? That was a nasty fight you had with Bakugo." "Perfectly fine, thanks to Recovery Girl. I'm just so tired and my head hurts a bit." Todoroki printed off the paper. He retrieved it from the printer, then handed it to Midoriya, who put it in a folder in his bag. Todoroki shut off the laptop, then collected his things. "I'll walk you to the station again." "You don't have to. We've already been through this, Midoriya. I am walking you to the train station." They exited the library, walking side by side towards the station. Midoriya felt like he could collapse on the ground and take a nap, so it took all of his willpower to keep upright to avoid worrying Todoroki. He didn't seem like it, but Todoroki must be the worrying type, since he keeps walking Midoriya to the train station. Maybe this would become a normal thing? Don't fall asleep on the train, Todoroki told him. And I'll send you a picture of the notes later. Bye, Midoriya. Bye, Todoroki, Midoriya slurred in reply. The train ride seemed to talk forever. Midoriya passed the time by playing a few games on his phone and checking the hero news periodically. Eventually, he reached home, lazily slipping off his shoes and throwing his backpack to the side. I'm home, he mumbled. Welcome back, Izuku, his mom called from the kitchen. Dinner is ready. His mom had made omuris and Izuku slowly ate his food, nearly falling asleep in it. After dinner, his mom washed the dishes while Izuku headed to his room. It was only 7 but he was just exhausted. He checked his phone and saw that Todoroki had sent him a picture of the notes. Groaning, he copied them down so he wouldn't forget later. The topic of today's lesson was going further into the primary soulmate attraction of platonic soulmates. Most platonic soulmates can tell who their soulmates were just by the pull towards each other. Once the two touch, the bond is strengthened and cannot be broken unless by forced separation of the two for several years. When it does eventually break from the separation, it is one of the most painful things a person could experience. Sometimes one or both of the platonic soulmates die. Parents are advised that if their child has a platonic soulmate, to take great care in finding out who the person is if the child finds them at a young age. They're also instructed to keep the two together as much as possible until the second phase has begun. The soulmate class was incredibly interesting. Izuku was learning so much about soulmates that it made him incredibly excited to meet his own soulmates. He hopes that he will meet them both at the same time. Who knows, maybe he has already met one or both of them. Yawning, Izuku changed into pajamas and headed to bed, the excitement from the thought of his soulmates still rolling through his mind.